Hey, that's Trevor Devall right there. I dragged him out of bed.
Yeah, can you tell?
Yeah. we
Is
were
that obvious?
we were just comparing notes. Have you done your auditions now, or do you do them in the morning, the last minute before they're due?
Yeah.
And opinions vary. It really doesn't matter. It's all about the whether or not it's working for you. You know.
I said at the beginning of this year, I said, I'm going to turn over a new leaf. I'm going to, as soon as I get the audition, I'm going to do it like right away, like right now. Have I done that ever at all? No. It's due by 4 o'clock on Tuesday, 3:59. I guess I better get that audition in every single time.
Hey,
Work.
sometimes I'm throwing it in there at 4:15 when it's due at 4. Because
Yeah.
what are they going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Not
Exactly.
take it? Sometimes they just say, "All right," because I know it's really due at
Well, yeah,
6:30
right.
before the end of the day.
They know that too, and they're
I know.
they're like, it's really not due till tomorrow morning. I'm like, you see, if you tell me that, then
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I'm the laziest guy in the world. So
Yeah, and why do you think we're in voice acting? And that used to be because at 6:30 everyone has to leave the agency. No matter what agency you're at, they're probably there till 6:30. Then they have to go home because they're human beings with lives. And so I know if I just get it in before 6:30,
that's right.
and sometimes later than that because they have to take their work home with them because they have these shiny little devices that don't let them have a moment's sleep.
Ugh,
I guess what we're saying is we have nothing but disdain for the people that try to get us work.
yeah, they're scum.
Yeah, yeah. I love you, CESD and Pat Brady and Kathy and Samit and Vinny and Paul and Bo and I've forgotten our. It's like an Oscar speech, and I'll never even get in the room. But I'm thanking them anyway.
Yeah, I just call them all collectively 10%.
Ten
I'd like to
percent.
collectively thank the 10% of my income that I'll never see. Thank you, 10%.
Which by the way, they're worth every penny because I've seen what they have to
Absolutely.
do. Oh man, I've seen what they have
If
to
anyone
do.
from SBV is watching, you
Yeah.
know I'm kidding, right? You do know I'm kidding, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and play the pandemic game of the Zoom game of hey, what's that behind you? What's your background? See, I've just got to see. You see a green screen, but I'm gonna. You'll see when this comes out in the final product. It's just like a sort of black background behind me. But you apparently have an entire workshop. It looks like.
Well, yeah, this is not actually my recording booth. I'm in the control room right now. The
All right.
'Cause you normally see me at the table reads for F is for Family, and
Yeah.
I'm in the booth. But this is my control room. But I also shoot a YouTube show, so that's why all of this gear is all
Oh.
set up.
YouTube. All right. Tell me about the YouTube show.
Oh, it's my geeky little secret. It's
All
my
right.
geeky little secret. Uh, it's really stupid. You really want to hear
Well, it's really stupid, and it's on YouTube. I mean, do you have to qualify one
it?
phrase
Yeah,
with the other?
that's a good
I
point.
mean, my stuff goes up on YouTube. That should tell you everything you need to know.
So I have this show called Me, Myself, and Die, and um, so Matt Mercer and that gang, they do their Critical Role thing where they sit around, they play D&D, and they shoot it and they film it. And I
Yeah.
thought, wouldn't that be funny if I did it, but just me? It's just me playing all the characters, and so 4,200 subscribers later.
Hey, hey,
So okay, I guess let's
who's
keep going.
laughing
Who's
now, huh?
laughing now?
Now, are you able to, or do you care about monetizing it? Getting it because you have enough subscribers and you probably have enough views now to be
Yeah,
able to monetize it and have ad rates and things like
yeah,
that.
they told me it was monetizable. I think it's after 1,000 on
Yeah.
YouTube it becomes monetizable. So I said, okay, sure, monetize it. And all of a sudden now there's ads.
Mhm.
So I think
You
I've
get to
made a
choose
hundred
the ads
dollars
though.
on it.
Yeah, well, you may not get to choose every single ad, but you do get to choose the kind of ads. You get to choose how the ads come because I do that for every video. I monetize them.
Oh yeah,
I make so many tens of dollars doing
yeah,
this. It's
scores of cents.
scores of cents, and they YouTube is tricky. They're crafty. They'll as soon as you start getting your views right where you want them, and as soon as the money, the CPM, that clicks per meal ad rate they give you, the what you're going to get paid for each video, as soon as that starts to favor you, they throw a curveball and they change the algorithm, and then you're right back where you started.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really is only for the people that seem to have an incredibly high volume of viewers or extremely targeted demographics that they
Yeah.
like as well.
Yeah. I don't really, I mean, I don't care about, I just do it because I think it's stupid and it's kind of hilarious. But then some of the fans said, "Oh, you should do a Patreon," and I was like,
Hmm.
"Okay, so now there's people giving me money," and I'm
Yeah,
like, "Really? Okay, I guess I'll take it."
yeah,
But
take it, take it. That's look, this is what our economy has sort of become.
totally,
I don't want to say it's the entire economy, but I do have to say that if you're an artist and say in those times where you're not working and you're a busy guy, I'm fairly busy, but we still have downtime. And if
sure,
you want to create something and enough people like it, sure, you can hang out a shingle and people will offer you money. You're not fleecing them. They know
yeah,
the
that's true.
deal. What's unfortunate is when there are people that can't work or are getting let go of traditional jobs that usually would take better care of them, and they're having to turn to crowdfunding sources
Yeah,
just to get by. You and I were doing this because for shits and giggles.
yeah, yeah, totally, and
And yeah.
that is a. I mean, I'm so aware of that this is that I've got the luxury to be able to spend all this
Yeah.
time doing the show, and I don't really have to take the money for anything. But yeah, it's weird though. And the other thing to me is that because I did it as a labor of love or it's a joke mostly. It's weird to me. I feel guilty when people want to pay me for it. I'm like, really? Like, it's really just. I mean, I just do this anyway, though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I understand the feeling. I understand the feeling because I stream 2 days a week. I streamed earlier today. And there are people that will on Twitch, they will do this thing called cheers. I don't know if you ever, yeah, they cheer with bits, which is like Twitch currency that you have to purchase and all that. And they'll cheer. And it'll be, sometimes it's like $1 at a time, or they'll donate. And I don't really solicit any of that stuff, but I just say, look, if you want me to do the voice line of this particular character in the game I'm playing, okay. But I would like, I'm gonna. There's a rate for me to do it because I found that if I ask people to donate, then it cuts way down on the number of requests. So I don't become just a talking
yeah, yeah.
doll for the
Well, that
entire
was my.
stream.
That's why I was a little reticent to start the Patreon because I thought, well, as soon as I do this, now I have to produce. Now I'm beholden to these people.
Yeah,
But so many of my fans said, no, 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 no. Don't even worry about it. We just love what you're doing. We just want to
right.
be able to feel that we're supporting. And I thought,
Yeah,
oh, I guess that's a thing.
yeah.
Okay. Weird.
It's
But
yeah.
yeah.
It gets easier to understand once you've done it for a couple of people. You find someone that you like, and you say, "Okay, I'll give you this much." Like there's Sam Harris. He's a neuroscientist and a philosopher. Yeah, you're aware of him. He's a kind of a controversial figure. I don't see why he's that controversial. He's a very honest person who comes by his opinions very rationally. But of course, now apparently I'm going to be called an asshole for saying that.
Oh
But
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, come on. If you speak rationally, you're
Of course. And I won't even agree with him on everything, but I like his process. And so I donate. And he actually says in his podcast, he says, look, if there's ever a doubt that you can donate the $3 or $5 a month I'm asking for, then email us and we'll give you a free subscription.
Oh yeah. I've
Yeah,
heard
we'll
people
give
do
it
that
to
at
you
the
for
beginning.
free. I don't want you to ever, like, this is a cup of coffee
That's
a
awesome.
month. Yeah. And so I never want this to be a thing. And I'll tell that to people on my stream. Don't ever donate if you can't. I mean, my God, a voice line ain't worth that much, is it? And,
Yeah, yeah.
and everything I make, I give to my brother who lives in Texas and who can't work because of the pandemic.
Right.
So, I don't give it to him. I pay him for doing, graphics for my stream and all that. But
You employ him.
yes, exactly. And this is, I'm reading about all this kinds of stuff. We're probably going to end up talking about philosophy and economics more than voiceover.
I'm okay with that.
Tough shit, America. It's the goddamn EDGEVOICE STREAMCAST. This is, if anyone who watches this
jumps. Voice
yeah,
jumps.
I know. Yeah, we'll go anywhere you want to go. I don't care. I say this all the time. A person will have a voice actor, or an actor will have fans, and a lot of times the fans want to know, I wonder what they're really like, because they're always just answering boilerplate questions. Well, this is what you're really like.
Right.
So,
of course, this is the internet, so we can't be what we're really like.
I don't know. It's a Zoom call. Apparently, some people.
Yeah, true.
You know what? I'm not even gonna mention the guy's name. I'm gonna give him a chance at becoming relatively anonymous again. Although he was a public figure, so he wasn't that anonymous. But I would just feel bad. Like, even if I had the horrendous judgment to drop trowel during a Zoom call, I still wouldn't want people for the rest of my life to think that pretty much defined him.
Yeah. That's well, yeah. We shouldn't even. It's too embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I probably got a couple of years on you. I'm 51. My biggest transgressive years, where I did the stupidest shit I've done and ever will do, were pre-internet. And thank you, fate. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jeebus, because
I can't even imagine growing up today. I can't even imagine being a young person today in this environment where you have to guard every little thing you say, because it's all categorized and gonna, they can use it against you years later. I'm just like, what kind of a world is that? That's why I'm off the social media entirely. Like, I still have accounts, but I never. It's amazing. I saw your message on Twitter, because I was like, I'll just see. It's been about a year, so I'll just see if there's anybody. And there you were. But I honestly, and I probably shouldn't say this because it's the internet, but I think social media is the worst societal cancer that we've ever come up with. I think it's absolutely part of the reason why this country is so divided against itself. I think it's a horror show, frankly. And I never understood Twitter. I never understood the allure. I was like, what the hell do I care about? Hey, well, here's my random thought. But what the fuck? Why? Who cares? Start to sound like Bill, right? Who cares?
Hey, what the?
Characters.
I'm gonna put Twitter right through that fucking wall.
That's that wall there, right?
Isn't that funny how everyone who hangs around Bill Burr eventually just sort of gets absorbed by his personality? He's like, hey, I got a hot take I'm going to share with you people. I don't give a fuck if you don't like it. I'm just that idiot at the end of the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care.
You got a whole cast of a show right now,
Yeah.
Talking like this in everyday life, right?
Yeah. And you know what? He's only like a year older than me. And I'm glad I came up in a different part of the country stand-up wise, because it would have been too tempting to just start doing Bill Burr shit. Yeah. And he probably would afterwards like, hey, EDGEVOICE, hey, why don't you just do the voices, all right? Because I don't need another one of me out there, okay? Yeah, you let me handle the hot Irish takes. And you crush the voices, okay?
He is the first time, because obviously the first time I met him was F is for Family.
The show. Yeah, in a booth, recording.
I will never forget the first time we were all there, and it was me and Debbie and Kevin doing a bunch of characters, right?
Uh-huh.
Because we were still recording at the same time back then, or as much as we could.
Yeah.
And we're having scenes with ourselves, and I'm playing 5 characters, and Debbie's playing 7 characters, and we're going back and forth and doing the thing that we do that we do without even thinking. And he is just grinning like he's a little kid at Christmas, and he comes in, he's like, how do you keep all that straight? It's unbelievable. How do you and he was so giddy that, like, because he had never seen this before, right? And I was like, this is the coolest experience right now.
Oh,
yeah. It was so great.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to sit there like in the green room, like in the break room over at Margarita Mix, which is one of the world-class recording studio, one of the many ones we have here in LA. And I just got to sit there and talk a little bit about stand-up with him, because I gave him my propers and said, all right, I did 10 years on the road and all that. So there was enough of a shorthand where he sort of indulged me, but we got to chat a little bit about it. And then we went into the booth, and he had sort of the same look. It's like he was really thrilled that we had this cast together. And I'm just, popping in and out doing my random voices. But the really cool thing was, next to me for like one episode was Melissa Villaseñor. And so now she's on Saturday Night Live, and she's famous for doing these really wonderful impressions. And a lot of them are completely out of left field. It's like, how could she do that one? How could Melissa do Owen Wilson? Well, she can, you know? But in the meantime, I didn't know who she was. She sure as hell didn't know who I was. So we're sitting next to each other, and I'm watching her do her voice match, and she's watching me do my voice match. And in between takes, and while someone else is talking, I'm scribbling to her, what are your 5 favorite impressions? And she gives me hers, and I give her mine, and then we're just sort of like dueling impressions just to see what the other person can do. And to me, it just tickles me to no end that person sitting next to me is now the first Latin cast member of SNL, and is just, I don't know, killing it. She was on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here thinking, how awesome is that?
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I've only been in LA for 7 years now, and it still kind of blows my mind that I get to play in that sandbox with these people. That's a big deal, man. Like, when I was in that room with, Bill, and then Mo Collins comes in, and I'm just like, this is pretty good. I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of great people over the years here, and it's just, you didn't get that back home because there's no celebrity back there. It doesn't work this
Tom
well.
Green.
Well,
in the 15 years ago, Tom Green.
But it's interesting because back home in Vancouver, the one thing I never had to deal with was having celebrities come to take my lead role from me, which is a thing that happens here all the time. We're in competition with these TV and movie people that think, oh, voiceover's easy, I'm gonna do that, and we're going, hello, what the?
Yeah. I mean, there's a pecking order that exists in every industry, and there's certainly one here. And in voice acting, it's weird. It's kind of like, okay, it's senior year in high school, and all the seniors that sort of run the class, they're established. You've gotten to know them. They've sort of earned it. They've worked their way up. Hey, wait, what are these 5 people freshman year in college doing back in our classroom? You're not part of the class. Yeah, well, they're not having class right now, so we thought we'd come back there and just kick the shit out of all of you because we feel like it.
Exactly.
I can't stop you, can I? No.
Exactly.
No, principal asked me to come back.
Yeah.
What do? I do this. Now you're doing it half the amount of time. How do you like that? It's like, I can't say anything about it, can I?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't.
And it's tough too, because a lot of these celebrities, I mean, we're all actors. In the end of the day, we're all just trying to stay working. So that's the truth. But at the same time, a lot of these celebrities that get into it, and you just know, they're terrible. They don't know what the hell they're doing at all. They don't have the first clue. It's really tough. It's tough for me to bite my tongue and not, because I can't. I'm an awful liar. I can't pretend. I can't be like, oh, that was really good. I can't. It's on my face. Like, it's like a book. You suck. Turn the page. Oh, you still suck. Turn the page. You suck. You know what I mean? And so that's tough when it's celebrities. But when there's people that do get it, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool, and they're like the real thing, and you go, okay, all right, okay, you can stay in the room, you play us, but
I will never tell any stories. We've both gotten to work with A-list people, and I've always thought they acquitted themselves fine. Some better than others.
Yes,
all of them can act because they're A-list, and even if you're not a great actor, you're great at doing the job of being a movie star, and it's a job.
Right.
Like, Jack Nicholson once said about Keanu Reeves, because people were slagging off on Keanu Reeves, and, if you've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, a lot of it's warranted.
My most masterful Dracula dude.
Yeah, exactly. I took him to Carfax Abbey. Like, come on, man.
I love Keanu. I really do.
I love Keanu Reeves too.
But I can't do a bad British accent. I can't do him doing an English accent. It won't work in my mouth.
It's hard. It's hard. You have to fry a lot of circuits to get yourself there that you need for future work, And I'm saying that Keanu Reeves is probably one of the best people on the planet because he's very philanthropic. He's just I've never met him, but from what I've heard, he's a lovely human being. And I happen to think he's been fantastic in many movies.
You know what? I
Yeah,
can't take my eyes off him. Oh, the John Wick
yeah,
stuff. I'm just
yeah.
like
I
glued
know.
to the screen. I
I
can't
know.
take my eyes off the guy. I'm like, there's something
I know.
so, especially as he's getting older. There's something so magnetic about him.
He's just, you know what? He's figuring it all out. And Will Smith will tell you when he first did Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he was awful. He says, "You look at early episodes of that, you can see my lips moving as the other actor's talking. I'm just waiting for my turn to talk." And this was a guy who could have gone to MIT. He was accepted at MIT. He's fucking smarter than most of us. So what Nicholson said about Keanu Reeves is, look, I know, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, there's a skill to being that level of movie star that he is, and there is a certain thing you have to be able to do to be able to handle the pressure, to be able to exude what you need to carry the role. Yes, the nuts and bolts of his acting don't, obviously, they're not what we're used to seeing when it comes to somebody like a Gary Oldman or a Sean Penn. People who are always great. Even when they misfire, it's really interesting to watch.
Right.
So, yes. So, when you're in a room and you're working with somebody who's famous, or at least, at the very least, really well known, and you see that, oh, they're still not adjusted yet from cameras on me to only a mic?
Right.
Oh, okay. How do I do this?
Yeah.
And some of them get it, and others, they just never really quite get it, but
Yeah.
they are who they are.
You know, anytime there's an on-camera person who comes in the booth, there's always that, if it's their first time, there's always that initial terror where
Yeah.
they come in and they see the rest of us doing our thing, and you can them just like, what am I doing here? I can't, you guys do that. You know, the thing that always gets them to every single time is the effort sounds. It's never the lines, it's always the effort sounds. Because that, if you think about it, that is pretty unique to what we do.
It is different.
You don't have a situation in an on-camera thing where your specific job in this scene is to make the sound of being punched.
Yeah.
Without actually being punched, right?
Yeah.
So you can see these guys going, how do you, what, you know? And then eventually they get it, hopefully.
Yeah, it's funny. You would think the concept, at least, they would get because they've done love scenes. And love scenes, which I never did in my on-camera days, didn't have a lot of those at Nickelodeon. But obviously the love scene is nothing remotely like actually having sex with somebody or making love to somebody. You're gyrating and they're sweating and there's a whole crew around you and all of that, you know? And you would think that at least they understand that, oh, well, nothing about this is real. I just have to sell it as such.
Right.
That's what effort noises are. It's like, no, you're not actually getting punched, but you're convincing yourself you are. And it's
this weird like step that so many on-camera people have such a problem. It takes them so long to figure that out. It's so many times. Weird.
Yeah, I know.
Just to end that Keanu thing, a buddy of mine back home, he did an independent film with Keanu Reeves, and he said that Keanu is, like, this is maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's the most giving, generous, pleasant, just 100% professional. And I'm like, that's the kind of story you love to hear, because you're like, oh, good. It's true. It's true what I envision him as being.
Yeah. You know? I have said that with other people I've chatted with on here, that every now and then when you meet somebody famous, you're hoping, please be nice. Please be nice. I don't want to have to think of you differently than I think of you, than I grew up thinking of you. And you find out they are awesome. You just think, yes, thank you. Yes, it's so wonderful to find out that Bryan Cranston is nice and funny and treats you like an equal. And even though you're in your mind thinking, I am nowhere near this guy, I'm nowhere near this guy's level, and he's talking to you like you are.
Right.
And I got to meet Smokey Robinson once. My wife and I were just out at a restaurant. One of the most famous, influential people in pop and R&B history walks into the restaurant. My wife just can't help herself. She runs up and tells him how awesome he is. And he sits there and chats with us. We take a picture with him. He asks, where are you guys from? This and that. And I thought, thank you for being everything that I would hope that you would be. So,
totally.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's how Bill has been to me. He's been, like, he's the, when we first started doing the show, I was just starting to see my girlfriend. So it was the first couple months. So I'm still in the trying to impress you phase, right?
Oh, yeah.
And at one point, it's like a Monday night or something, and she's on the internet, and she says, there's this show tomorrow night on Sunset Boulevard. It's this, I forget what it is, but it's all these comics. They get together, and they do their bit, but then they have to sing a song at the end. I forget what the name of the thing is, but it's
Okay.
so there's a the Jim Jeffries is there
Uh-huh.
and Bill Burr is going to be there and
Uh-huh.
everything. They said, "Oh well, we should go see if there's tickets." Oh, it's sold out. And I went, "Oh yeah, just hold on a sec." Text Bill. Hey Bill, it's Trevor Devall. Listen, any chance you give me a couple tickets for that show tomorrow night? Thinking there's no way in hell this
Yeah.
will happen. And before I put my phone down, brr, done. I'm like, oh okay. So we walk to the club on Sunset Boulevard the next night. And oh, Mr. Devall, yes, here's your special to the front of the line,
Oh,
special
that's
security.
awesome.
We move up to the special little table, which is only for, and I was like, and sitting right beside Jim Jeffries, and of course, my girlfriend is like, "Oh my God, you're," and I'm like, "Yeah, I suppose I am."
Yeah.
Thinking, how did this happen? How?
Yeah.
So thanks, Bill.
Yeah. No, look, these are the little things that happen, and a lot of people that'll watch this are voice actors, people getting into voice acting, people just wanting to get into the business. Sometimes it feels like maybe it just happened overnight, but it's never overnight. It is a series of steps that you take by working at what you do, by impressing the right people at the right time, by seizing opportunities when they come along. So yeah, it wasn't like you left Vancouver and the next day you're at Bill Burr's show. You go through these steps, you prove yourself, these trials by fire, and you work your way up to the point where Bill Burr is impressed enough with you that he says, "Of course I'll throw out a couple of tickets to this guy with no notice." Yeah, he's
Yeah,
he's
it's
in
cool.
the club now. He earned
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah.
so you couldn't just be standing behind him at Cantor's Deli saying, "Bill, big fan. Can I go to your show tomorrow night?" It's like, you
Excuse
know.
me, sir. Do you have any tickets for your show?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he would give you some. I'm not suggesting you accost Bill Burr when the pandemic lifts and start hitting him up for tickets, because I'm not going to guarantee he's going to do it.
Probably not.
We're just saying our interactions with Bill have been wonderful.
Yes, positive.
Yes, exactly. And the other fun thing is that going to those table reads, you're doing it during a season where the show is just starting to get recognized, right? Like I came in season 2. You've been there in the beginning. And I think last year we were doing it to the table reads and it was season 3, but the Emmy nominations came in for season 2. And I'm looking at like half the table has Emmy nominations. I'm thinking, I got to see that happen.
Yeah,
I
that
got
was
to
cool.
see that unfold. It's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah.
miss that. I miss those table reads so much. They were just that's the close. I came up in the theater, so
Okay.
being able to do anything live with it within the immediacy of an audience like that, it just
Yeah.
that's the closest I've been back to the theater
Right.
in years, and to be able to do that, it was just I loved it so much. And now because of the whole pandemic thing, we're doing the table reads on Zoom, and they're fine, I guess, but it's you lose so much because the timing of the jokes. You can't because there's the delay with the Zoom
Yeah.
and you can't hear the audience and it's not the same. You're not even looking someone in the eye. You're looking at a series of pixels.
Yeah.
And it's not so it's but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, there's not enough plexiglass to cordon off everybody, to partition everybody, to do a responsible table read under a tent in a field somewhere with a generator with all the mics hooked up. So yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, I started in stand-up and I was a theater minor in college, and so I understand a live audience is what you look for. You want that connection. You want to make decisions in the moment, split-second decisions to sort of tweak, to pivot, to do whatever you need to do to make your performance work, and you need that connection with the audience to see if it's working. And when it works, it's awesome. When it doesn't work, you wish it was a Zoom call. So you can just go end meeting.
Yeah. Pardon me while I mute my camera.
Yeah. Boy, geez, that was awful, wasn't it? Too bad about all that lag that I couldn't hear the laughs until, like it was like the next day.
It's the next episode.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I understand that too. And I, fortunate enough to be on more than one show that has a table read, but that means there are now 2 table reads that I miss not going to. And, this will eventually lift. This too shall pass.
That's true. I'll tell you, I'm over it, man. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, but I am
Yeah.
I realized not too long ago, that I'd been denying it the whole time because I really haven't left the house. I've gone to the grocery store. That's
Yeah.
where I've been since March. You
Okay.
know, and it's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. I got a beautiful house. I got lots of space. I got a separate studio. I go out back and forth. It's all great. But
Hmm.
I had a little breakdown a couple weeks ago where I realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm going slightly mad.
Yeah.
And I started to, something snapped, and I realized I want to go out of the world. I want people. But so yeah, I've had it. I've had it. I've had it. I've had it. I want it to be done. I want it to be finished.
Yeah. Mr. Hortenwasser? Well, there's socially distanced hiking. You can do that. You can put on a mask and you can talk
You
to
know what?
friends.
But that's what it is. It's not so much the fact that you can't, because obviously you're in California, we got pretty strict stuff. But you know what it
Yeah.
is? It's the air of normalcy that has happened, where people go out and just expect to not only be wearing a mask, but oh, don't get too close to me.
Right.
It's that made me nuts, because I was like,
Yeah.
what have we become? You know what I mean? It was like, I felt like Charlton Heston standing at the beach, looking at the Statue of Liberty. That moment of like, what did we do? What did we do?
Yeah.
Because it's just this. And again, it's not like there's any option here. It's a fucking pandemic. You can't just will it away. So, but it's that idea of normalcy, that sense of normalcy that's descended upon us, that, well, of course you don't touch another human being ever again. It's just the way it is. I'm like, I don't want to admit to that. So that's what that was all about.
Hey, my wife and I, for the first time in 10 months, had socially distanced drinks with two friends. Someone we had not seen in forever. And it was someone that, just not only had we not seen, but she had been going through major life changes. So she had someone new in her life, and we got to meet them. And we went for a walk later, and I did an elbow bump, which is about as close as we could do to say hello. And it was at least, obviously the rules are the rules, but you are allowed. We were sitting outdoors, so you're allowed to take your masks off. So we took our masks off and sat a few feet away, and we had a normal, lovely lunch. And then we put our masks on and went for a walk. And it's been 4 days, so I don't know, the COVID ain't got me yet. So, knock on wood. But we did it the way you're supposed to do it. And even then, like you say, because you're doing it, you notice what it isn't. It isn't normal.
Right.
But you take what you can get.
Yeah.
And, you just say, I can stick this out, because people have been through worse. They've been through much, much worse. So it's not like you have a plague doctor coming in one of those big bird suits in the 1400s coming to examine you.
That's what I've said from the beginning. It's not like this is the Black Plague. And my mom, she's 86 years old, and I haven't had this conversation with her yet, but I want to. I want to call her and say, tell me, what was the worst year that you can remember? Because she has said to me, she said, I remember Kennedy getting assassinated. I remember, she was a kid when World War II was just coming to its close.
Yeah.
She's, saw the craziness of the 60s, and she saw all that stuff, including the end of the Soviet Union, which, we all saw. And she said, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen this kind of global thing before. But I wonder if it's like, because I look at how tumultuous this year has been in the United States, with all of the attendant problems that have happened, and have been exacerbated because of the pandemic situation. And I want to say to her, so in the 60s, when there was like riots all the time, and people thought that, like students getting shot on campus and stuff like this by National Guardsmen and stuff, I want to say to her, is this as bad as that? Because I don't think it is. I mean, I wasn't there, but I'm looking at the historical record, and I'm thinking, I think we're still better off than they were. It feels worse, but then again, like, we've never been through a war. We never went through the war years. I mean, I didn't serve. Did you? Were you ever a uniform?
No, my oldest brother, oddly enough, did at 40. At 40, back in 05, he joined up the National Guard, and he requested Iraq. Or he requested Afghanistan or Iraq, and he did it because he had spent years working in a bank, working in the government, going from one cubicle to the next. Meanwhile, I was out in my 20s and early 30s being a comic. just
Right.
being a complete libertine. And again, thank you, no internet. But yeah, just completely doing whatever I wanted to do. And he took the traditional path. And then he hit 40 and he said, you know what? If I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. I'll be too old. I'll have aged out. They won't accept me. And I've always wanted to serve. So he did it on his 40th birthday. They
Wow.
picked him up for basic. He did basic training in Kentucky, in the Ohio River Valley. He
Wow.
got a hernia from basic training, but he got through it. And then he had to get a hernia surgery repaired, heal up from that. And then he got to go do his year in Iraq, driving a truck, going outside the wire to look for IEDs, you know. And then he had to guard detainees at Camp Bucca, which is where ISIS started while he was there. All of that stuff. And he was pretty sanguine about it, but it gave him purpose. And then, you know, he's back now. His wife and kids and all that. He's back on the traditional path. But he did it, and he did something I think is extraordinary. And when he did it, I told him, look, I understand why you're doing this. I'm not going to do it because I don't feel the need to do it. I don't feel like, you know, there's no conscription. So if they needed, you know, and more people, they would draft us. They would just institute that. And I've had my excitement and my adventure. So I understand why you're doing this. Maybe that gives him the perspective to get through what we're going through. But I had talked to my grandfather. I talked to my mom about my grandparents. I told somebody else this too. I said, okay, my grandmother was born in 1918. As an infant, she got Spanish flu. And Spanish flu is much worse than...
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is a plague. It's just relatively mild compared to Spanish flu, which killed 25 million people worldwide. And my God, I hope we don't lose another person to this one. We will, but it will not end up doing what the Spanish flu did. And the doctors told her parents, look, she's probably not going to live, but if she does, she's not going to see 30. Her immune system's going to be wrecked. Wow. Well, she lived to 72 and she died of emphysema, which you only get from smoking, which she started doing later in life, thinking, I'm not even supposed to be here, so I may as well start smoking.
Right.
My granddad was born in 1910, got a college degree, and got out of college during the worst year of the Depression. And so was lucky to get any job at all. Then at 30, and he was 29 years old, he got drafted into the Army, or into the Navy. He served from 1939 to 1946.
Wow.
Okay, so yeah, I think he had served a little bit later than after he got drafted, but he had 3 kids while he was in the Navy. He'd come back and visit, he'd get some time off, they'd have another kid. He used to work for Coca-Cola. His wife, my grandmother, had to sell their stock in Coca-Cola so she could pay the bills because the Navy didn't pay him enough while he was off fighting to protect the United States and the whole world against fucking Nazis.
Oh, boy.
And if they had kept their Coca-Cola stock, they would have been millionaires by the time I was born.
Yeah.
Then when he's in his 50s, the job he had had for years, his boss told him, hey, by the way, you know that 401k I told you have? I lied. You don't have one. There is no pension for you.
Oh, surprise.
Yeah, surprise. He's like in his late 50s. He quits that job, goes and becomes like a trainee at the IRS. It's the only government job he thinks he can get. He works 15 years at the IRS and finally gets his retirement that way. And this is all during the 60s, you know, everything. And I thought, if my granddad can live through that, I can put on a mask. And
Totally, man.
Yeah.
I am totally with you. Like, my
Yeah.
granddad fought in World War I.
Really?
I heard those stories as a kid. Not the really brutal ones, but you know, let's just say that when I saw 1917, it was like, oh, that's old hat.
Come here, son. Give me another lime Ricky, and I'll tell you what a bayonet does to a torso.
Yeah. Let me explain trench foot to you there, sonny. So I grew up with a lot of those stories, and my parents were hard-working folk. You know, my dad worked in the oil field his whole life, and
All right.
we didn't have a bunch of money or anything. We didn't, I never suffered. I had everything I needed to go to school and all that stuff. But I just look at even stuff that they went through, even stuff that they had to deal with, and I think I, especially as a Canadian, never had to go to war.
Right.
I never had to. I grew up. My halcyon days were the 80s and 90s. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Those were the 2 greatest decades to be young ever.
They were pretty nice.
My God, they were awesome. So I think if this is the worst that my generation has to deal with,
Yeah.
I'll fucking take it. I'll
Yeah.
take it with a big smile on my face. I'll take it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We are pretty lucky. I do think that I'm enough of a student of history, and I read Steve Pinker's book, who's got a wonderful book. Well, I hesitate to say wonderful. It's an amazing book, and it's expertly written. Wonderful is not the word I think of because you think happy, happy, happy thoughts, but it's so filled with just horrifying images of violence and death and destruction. But it's called I think it's called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And it's basically telling you how history trends towards us being less violent and
Right.
more prosperous as a society. And yes, I despair the species every time I get on social media because I agree it's being misused. It's being used to spread the worst kind of politics and ideas, but it also connects people. It can be used for good. I just think that right now we're trending in the wrong direction with that. But Steve Pinker used the data to show that it is significantly safer and better to be alive now than at literally any other time in history. The world is drastically safer. You are incredibly safe. The odds of you being a victim of a violent crime are dramatically lower than any time in history. This is not to assuage the trauma that anyone who has been a victim of a violent crime has gone through. I've been a victim of a violent crime. It's tough, but you do what you can and you move on. But yes, the homicide rate worldwide is as low as it's ever been in recorded history. And before they recorded history, it was much worse.
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
and there's a term and I forget what the term is, but it basically means that society now has things so good
Yeah.
that we have to create our own conflict in order to in order to give ourselves a sense of purpose. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a really sort of bastardized and oversimplified way of putting it, but there's some term that basically shows that. And you look at it, you go, I mean, you look at these kids these days, these
Yeah.
young generation, they have things so much better than literally any other generation in the history of our species ever.
Yeah.
Hands down. And all they see is how terrible things are. And I think the problem is you've lost all perspective. You've lost, well, you've never had it. And again, you
Yeah.
can't blame them because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't say, oh, well, the 1830s sure were bad. How the hell would I know, except from a historical, but I can learn about it. And I can read about it, and I can say, "Oh yeah, actually," because I've read Pinker's books as well, and it's fantastic because you get a sense of just how far we've come, and you get a sense of gratitude. And I'll tell you something, my friend. I think that is the one thing that is sorely lacking in society right now. A little bit of gratitude.
Gratitude. Yeah, it's true. Perspective is everything, and the only way you really get perspective is if you take a step back and you look at something in juxtaposition to what has come before and what is likely to follow. And when you take a step back, and Steve Pinker's book is a great way to start, to read the early chapters about just how horrifically we treated each other is to look at the person next to you and go, thank God we don't belong to different tribes, because we would literally be caving each other's skulls in over a piece of meat. Over a deer shank or something, because that's just how it worked. Thank God I didn't live 300 years ago because we were walking by our own sewage.
Yeah.
And thank God I didn't get a cold 300 years ago because it could have killed me. Thank God I didn't.
Finger.
Yeah, or what?
Or cut your finger and die of the infection.
Yeah, it can get septic. Thank God I didn't have a cavity 300 years ago, because unless they pull the tooth, it could have become abscessed and you could die from that. Most people died from their teeth back in the day. So if people read enough and get enough of a sense of history, what they will realize we're doing right now is we're refining. So yes, we have the luxury of clutching our pearls at the fact that votes are not being certified on time. Now, of course, it's a real threat because that's a slippery slope to us not having representative democracy. Don't get me started there. But it's worth clutching your pearls over. But yes, Your lasagna will still taste exactly the same when you pull it out of the microwave. And yes, when you fire up the old TV, you'll get to watch 800 million shows at your beck and call. So we have so many guardrails against the things that were waiting to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
That yes, it is very possible to lose perspective. And as you know, on social media, in order to make somebody think that you're the worst thing since Hitler, all you have to do is, I don't know, like the wrong show.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
I can't honestly. There's a colleague of ours right now who is dealing with this very thing right now. There was an incident that happened on the weekend where it was just that. It was him liking a thing on social media and all of a sudden getting
I read about that.
crucified on it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he comes out and he says, I didn't actually do anything wrong here. Oh my God. Because of course, if you don't bow and scrape to either side,
Yeah.
and it's just, it's a witch hunt. It's all witch hunts.
Yeah.
If she floats, she's a witch. That's what
Yeah.
that's what social media is. The accusation is guilt. That's it. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I want nothing to do with you fucking lunatics. Nothing. I'm out. Go fuck yourself. That's it. I'm out.
I know. I think this is worthy of saying, and I've said this repeatedly. I don't think it's symmetrical. I see things on the more conservative side worrying me much, much more because they produced our current dear leader, and you don't get him in a vacuum. However, I have very liberal friends, much more liberal than me, and I'm fairly liberal, who are also worried about their career prospects if they dare to step out of line. And it ain't coming from people on the right. It's coming from their fellow progressives on the left. They're sharpening their swords.
I don't want to get too political, obviously, but I will say that, I mean, first of all, I'm Canadian, so that automatically puts me on the left side of the spectrum. But that said, since I've moved to the States, I've not only started to understand the right, but I've also agreed with parts of their philosophy sometime. And you know why that happened? It happened because of social media. It happened because I was caught in the ultra liberal social media bubble, which constantly regurgitated the same things back and back at you. And one day, not that long ago, I said, I wonder if these people are all the monsters that all of my so-called friends on Facebook are telling me they are.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear it from them. So I investigated. And I started listening to the Ben Shapiros and the Candace Owens and all that kind of stuff, and the Steven Crowders. I was like, let's see. These are all the demonized monsters. Let's see. And sometimes they were fucking dreadful. But other times I was like, actually, I agree. Because most of the time, the stuff that I agreed with was like common sense, centrist, let's all just get along and use your fucking head. You know what I mean? And so I find myself politically homeless now because I can't vote because I'm not a citizen yet. But if I could, I wouldn't know who to vote for because I abhor the far left. I think that they're a danger that they don't even understand to themselves because they have no understanding of history. They don't know what the far left leads to. But all you have to do is look at the blood-soaked 20th century to see where the far left leads to. And the people on the far right also have no understanding of history, and they're so choked with their own ignorance. And so I find myself in the middle going, I'm homeless. I'm politically homeless here.
There's no tent for the middle. I'm center left. And
basically me too.
And I have no problem agreeing with most social ideas that come from the left. When you get a little too far, that's when I start saying, well, could we have a conversation about this? I'm not sure. But yes, if you look at a political spectrum, you start from the center and it's okay, maybe a little fiscal responsibility, social liberal, no problem. And then you start to drift and drift and drift. But sooner or later, it isn't just a line that ends. It's actually kind of a circle. If you go too far right, too far left, those two meet. And it's some sort of weird anarchy, fascist, I don't know what it is. It's, what, whatever we happen to say at this exact moment goes, and you better fucking agree with it. And I thought, you guys are closer than you think if you go too far. Yeah.
What am I going to say? I can't say anything because, I'm just a guy that just wants to get along. I just want to get along with everybody. I want to do my job. But I find myself in a situation where, like everybody else, you can't have an opinion publicly without being crucified by somebody.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have no opinion at all publicly. Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't even fucking vote. So why do I need an opinion?
I have a feeling if you had voted for president in this election, you'd know who you were going to vote for. You know?
I couldn't. Yeah, there's no way in conscience I could Trump. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this is the overtly political thing I'll say.
Yeah.
I will say this. I think that Donald Trump was a man. Was like he's dead.
Yes.
It is a man who has no character and no substance of no respect and understanding of the office and no understanding of civic duty.
Right.
Okay. I'll say that. So that automatically, as far as I'm concerned, disqualifies anybody from occupying the highest office in the land. You have to have some respect and notion of civic duty. Theoretically, you're doing something for the country rather than for your own personal enrichment or whatever the case is. That said, he goes on and on about fake news, fake news, fake news. Ironically, what has happened is the mainstream media has indulged him. They've become the very fake news that he has always accused them of being. So all you have to do to discredit Donald Trump is let the man talk. Yeah. Just, honestly, all any reporter has to do is just turn the camera on and then look at the camera and be like, I got no commentary. There it is. Just listen for yourself. But they don't do that. They excise a quote and then create an alternative narrative around that excerpt in order to make him look even worse than he is. And you don't have to make him look any worse. He's already the worst.
Yeah.
You don't have, so then the conservatives look at that and say, holy shit.
Yeah, they're being dishonest.
They're being dishonest, and it is fake news. And I go, do you see what's happening here? You people are creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're allowing him to be right. Why are you doing that to all of us? Why are you giving him fuel to his fire? Why?
Yeah, I have two things in my background that give me perspective on this. One, I have a journalism degree. So I know how journalism is supposed to be made. I know, but my journalism degree is from 1991 when we didn't have the ecosystem that we have right now. It was becoming niche, but it had not yet arrived at where it is now. So it used to be, you were still as objective as you could possibly be, and you delivered the news, and it was seen more of a public utility than as a money-making venture.
Absolutely.
CNN was one of the first things that changed that. They did 24/7 news. And it's not like they just filled the air with liberal bullshit. They just said, we have news all the time. So if anything happens, you want to hear about it, we've scooped everybody else by virtue of existing. And then people began to see, as tragic events unfolded, as crises unfolded, as they inevitably do, CNN was always there. So they started to pick up steam. Now, over time, that morphed into what we have now, which is, if you're a demographic, there's a news channel devoted to you. And I don't even care if your demographic is 6'7" white guys from Ukraine who also like tapioca pudding. It's like, oh yeah, we got the Tapioca Network. Tapioca ski, whatever it is. It's like, yeah, comrade, we got your news, okay? And so that, by default, makes the news less objective because it's catering to your biases. And as you know, with social media, and I talk about The Social Dilemma, the Netflix documentary, you already are consuming filtered news. It's no longer objective by the time it gets to you because you have selected for it based on things you like. The algorithm has fed that.
Exactly.
And with Trump, yes, as soon as he came down the escalator in June of 2015, I believe it was, I thought, this guy's a problem. This guy's going to be a problem. I don't think he'll get very far because who could believe this bullshit? But what he's saying is really concerning because he's taking this right out of a playbook that my wife, being Venezuelan, has seen before.
Right.
And she said, this guy's a problem, and he's going to do this, and then this, and then this. And he did all those things. And I thought, all you have to do is put that in the right light and let people see it with perspective. And what a lot of responsible media figures just did that. But because we're playing to niches, that's not enough.
Yeah.
You've got to keep feeding this beast. And there's a phenomena that goes on in the world of stand-up comedy that you only realize if you've done a lot of stand-up. Every now and then you're going to get heckled. There's going to be someone in the audience who is an asshole. And sometimes you're the only one that knows it. You're on stage and the heckler is talking to you and the rest of the audience doesn't hear them very well. They just hear you with the mic. What some comics did as a mistake would hear a heckler and they would immediately start tearing into them. And the audience would go, why are you tearing into that audience member? They were just laughing really loud. And you would later say, no, they were being an asshole. All you had to do to deal with the heckler is let them talk long enough for everyone to see, what an asshole.
Right.
Now you can tear into them.
Right.
A lot of the media did not do that. They didn't bring up the house lights and let people see that, oh, he's heckling.
Yeah.
So before you knew it, the heckler is saying, he's being mean to me. And they're like, yeah, we saw him being mean to you. So there's a bit of judo that's happened that...
Yeah, I agree completely. And it's a kind of a perfect metaphor to what has happened. But it does speak to what I was saying before about how the media has, they've responded to the heckler without letting the rest of us in on, what's happening. And I just... Again, coming from Canada, I have a slightly different perspective on this, and I feel like a total outsider watching this all happen. But I'm living through it, and
it's happening around you.
It's happening around, but I'm paying taxes to fucking fund it. So
this is like the Jerry Seinfeld bit. I'm bringing it back to stand up. Jerry Seinfeld says, "You ever been in the back of a cabbie's car and he's busy running red lights? He's almost killing people. He's almost hitting things. He's almost running over a fire hydrant. He's doing things that you're almost dying, and you're in the back seat feeling totally immune, like, I would never do that in my car." It's like, instead of being terrified for your own life, you just somehow feel like you're a spectator, even though you're in the car with them.
Yeah.
You're in the back of a cabbie's car, and you're just thinking, I would never drive like this.
Good thing they don't drive like this back home.
Yeah. It's like, wow, well, I'm completely safe. Yeah. I don't know about you. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with my career here. Everything's going great. But if ever all of it went away, sometimes we think, what would it be like to live somewhere else? We've never thought about Canada. Too cold. I know the people are lovely. And I know the weather's amazing, the right time of year, and all of these things. Yeah.
There's a good solid 10 minutes in July that's like...
There you go.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to take this jacket off. All right.
Yeah. Okay, don't put it too far.
Sun's going down. Sun's going down. Put it on.
It's great on the West Coast. The West Coast is just rainy in the winter. It's spared the wrath of old man Canadian winter.
Okay.
So when I go back, eventually I will. I'll go back to the island of Vancouver Island there.
All right.
But
we're not going to move to Medicine Hat, is what I'm saying.
Oh God, dude, I couldn't. I go back home like once a year, like in the winter, just to be like remind myself. Because I'll tell you something, where I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, I remember winters that were so cold. It's so cold that sometimes you could hear the trees explode as the sap froze and burst the wood. It's so cold that your flesh would freeze in 30 seconds if it was exposed. 40 degrees below zero, and that's the same in Fahrenheit as it is in Celsius. That's like Martian. That's like,
I've been in 30 below. I was in Minnesota, Christmas week, 1998, playing Knuckleheads Comedy Club in the Mall of America. It was 30 below. And there was a guy driving me from the hotel to the club, and he says, "Oh, yeah, there was one time it got 70 below, and, some people died there. They went outside. They shouldn't have done that."
Yeah.
And I thought, and my first line every night on stage was, you people don't have to live here.
Totally.
There's other places to live. And they always loved it. They always thought it was funny because they wore it like a badge of honor that they could take it.
That's right.
And I sure as hell couldn't.
Well, that was the same with my people back home. That's the same thing as, geez, it's a little cold enough for you. You'll be all right. It's fine. But I couldn't ever go back to it.
Yeah, my wife and I talk about a quality of life. We had this conversation before you and I started the Zoom call. We talk about, it's like, look, whether Trump is president or not, he's a waypoint in this journey we're on. He's not the cause of it. He's a symptom of it, a polarization, a dissatisfaction with government as it has been serving people. And he exploited people's fear and rage and insecurity, as a populist often does, a malignant one does. It doesn't mean these people don't have a right to be afraid about where their job is going. It doesn't mean they don't have a right to be afraid about what their prospects are in the future. Now, of course, he pointed them in directions they didn't need to be pointed in, but social media exacerbated it. And I talked to her and I said, it's an odd thing to sit here and think about the country you grew up in and wonder if it's going in the right direction, because we're not the first to do that, but to think, okay, if we think the polarization will just continue, if we cannot overcome ourselves, where can we go in the world to give ourselves the life we want to have? Because everywhere you go, there's always a chance for political turmoil. But is there a way of life that is older than that is more deeply entrenched than the ephemera of politics? And will they cherish that way of life beyond everything else? And the one place we came up with was Spain. We said they're always in turmoil, but man, they'll stop everything in the middle of the day and have some wine, have some tapas. And then they'll go, I don't know, go burn somebody in effigy, I guess. But first, lunch. So I thought, okay, if we're going to live around political turmoil, we should at least enjoy the food more. Yeah.
Apparently, Portugal is the place. Apparently, Portugal.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. I know a lot of editors in town who have done very well, and they're got a little place in Portugal, and that's their compound. That's where they go.
That's where they're going to go. Okay.
It's paradise. The food's fantastic. The weather's perfect. Nobody gives a fuck about anything. It's just go, I'm like, sounds pretty good.
All right. We hadn't thought about Portugal. Well, because then I'd have to learn Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah.
That's an extra language.
Portuguese, that's a whole other package.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm not ready to cut the cord on America. I'm giving it plenty of time, and I'm on a great show that hopefully will last forever, But we have kids. So, like, you at least can get your popcorn and sort of, you can view some of this from afar and think, well, thank God I don't have to raise someone in this. Like, we're raising two people in this. We're thinking, I don't know how much of this I want to get on them. Like, do I want them to know what it's like somewhere else, where maybe they don't care about Facebook so much? Maybe they don't all want to become Kardashians.
Well, I will say this. I've been all over the world.
Okay.
And I will say that America is certainly unique. It's its own thing.
I still think it's a great place. I still love it. We only got to travel to Europe for our honeymoon. So we saw some of Spain, France, and England. We saw some lovely things. But I have a feeling you've traveled more than that. What's your impression?
So, America is certainly its own thing, for sure. It's not so different. Like a lot of Americans think that Canada, for example, is somehow really different.
There are racists in Canada.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. It's really not that different. It's pretty much exactly the same, except a few tiny little things. But especially living here in in California, it's the most Canadian of the states. It feels very much like home, except for the weather. But being all over the world, obviously everybody's got their own problems. Everybody's got their own stuff. That it's always a case of the grass is always greener. You think I used to think, New Zealand. I love New Zealand. I spent a month there. It was fantastic. But I also know that if I had spent a year there, well, then, of course, I would be party to the various problems and trials that you don't see when you're only, your eyes are bright. Oh, look at this wonderful place. Look at this great thing. But then you go to a place like, Vietnam. The minute I landed in Hanoi, man, oh my God, that was like another planet. That was full on culture shock. Just the sights, the sounds, my God, the cacophony, the endless cacophony, and the smells and the chaos everywhere all the time, 24/7. It takes you 20 minutes to figure out how to cross a street because you can't. It's just it's amazing, but it's a different situation over there. And I still believe, I used to say this all the time, but I believe that everybody in America, especially after high school, they should take a page out of the Aussies book. They should take a year and go on walkabout, because you get a sense of what the world is, and then you come home and then you're like, okay, you've got some perspective. Because if more Americans, or Canadians for that matter, if more North Americans had some understanding that the world is a big and beautiful and crazy ass place, I think that would go a long way to teaching young people that it's fine to have ideology, but you have to remember that different people think differently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as you can talk about it, as long as you have the structures in place to talk about it, which America does. The Constitution affords that. The whole system is designed to compromise. Nobody wins. Everybody hates the outcome. That's the beauty of America.
Yeah. Well, This is something Sam Harris has said more than once, and I agree with it. How can you not agree with it? He says there are only two ways to resolve differences: conversation and violence. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, oh, you can sanction another country. It's either one or the other. It's a little bit of conversation, but some of it's a little bit of violence. It's under threat of force that you will do these things. So, you only have these two ways. And if you're having a disagreement with somebody person to person, you literally only have two ways to resolve it: conversation or violence. Now, violence is obviously not the way to go because it always leads to the same end. Conversation's it. And if you don't know how to have a conversation, if you're constantly throwing up roadblocks to Socratic dialogue, I ask a question, you answer it, you ask one, I answer it, we come to a greater understanding, maybe we reach a nexus of reality and agreement, and we have now avoided having to pick up a club and hit each other over the head.
Yeah.
If conversation breaks down, the only other choice is violence. And so what I'm always looking at is, how's our conversation going? How is it going right now? How is the dynamic between one narrative and the other resolving itself? Is it resolving itself? Or is it further entrenching one side and the other in their own bubble?
Yeah. This is the reason why, like I said at the very beginning of this is the reason why I decided to start actively looking at conservative news sources, because I wanted to understand their perspective. And what wound up happening was I gained an appreciation, much as you don't agree with the Trump supporter, but you can understand what would lead them to that. I'm exactly the same way. I don't agree with the people who voted for Donald Trump, but I get why they did. I'm like, yeah, in your case, I can see why you would think that that's the best way forward. And in a democracy, you're allowed to have that opinion. It's okay, because that opinion itself is not inherently awful. It's not inherently saying, it's not, as much as a lot of people would like to call him a fascist. Donald Trump is not a fascist. He's a narcissist, and there's a big fucking difference.
He's a narcissist who would be a fascist if he had the chance. If he
had the patience of I used to say, like, thank God his ambition is so tiny. Yeah. Thank God he is not a man of vision.
You can't keep him paying attention long enough for him to be effective at it. I just read a book. John Fugelsang is a guy I listen to who's very liberal, but he won't call himself a Democrat. He says, I won't join a party. I don't want to be expected to pull a lever just because someone has a D or an R next to their name. But he had a historian on who wrote a book about 5 dictators in the 20th century: Mussolini, Stalin, Hitler, Saddam Hussein, and Mao Zedong. And the one thing, well, they had many things in common. And Trump had things in common with them, or has things in common with them personality-wise. But the thing Trump does not have that they all had was, like you said, incredible discipline and vision. Trump only wants to enrich himself.
Right.
And, unfortunately, he saw the presidency as something that he won, and now he can't stand to lose it. And by virtue of his narcissism, he is weakening substantially the pillars of democracy at every possible chance. But you're right, it was all to do with him. And so if he had decided he was going to create a great society and he had the vision to do it, yes, things would have been much, much worse.
Way worse. We would have been in real trouble if he was even close to the monster that the far left tried to get us to believe that he was. And again, if you're only ever seeing the same type of news sources regurgitated at you, then you have no reason to suspect that the world is different. But as soon as you open your eyes, as soon as you land in Hanoi, you realize the world is not how they're telling you it is. And that's why it was so important to me to listen to people that I abhorred, that I thought were just, oh God, like the idea of me ever listening to Ben Shapiro. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well,
there's no way.
I could take Ben Shapiro for longer than Candace Owens. I can't think of a reason. Candace Owens to me announces herself 5 blocks ahead of time. There's a parade behind her. It's like, I'm here to grift. Shapiro has said the occasional thing. I think, okay, that's commonsensical. I don't know. Maybe I haven't listened to enough Candace Owens, but there's a gag reflex I have that I can't seem to suppress.
Hey, I hear my girlfriend. Oh God, if I put on anything like that, she's like, oh, she's got to leave the room, and I'm like, it's okay, I'll turn it down, but I have to listen to what these people are saying. And she's
Yeah.
like, at one point in the summer, she was like, oh, I think you're listening to too much of this. And I said, have you heard me? Have you heard how many times I'm swearing at these people, telling them to go fuck themselves because they're so clearly wrong? Don't think for a second I'm going to be suddenly swept up in a right wing. Like, dude, I'm
Yeah, no, it's not
Canadian.
gonna.
At the end of the day, I'm a centrist guy. I just, so. But I think it's so important for people to actually listen to the people on the other side. You don't have to agree with them, but if you at least understand why they have the positions they do, then you can begin to have that conversation and say, okay, let's try and find the common ground. Let's try and, but you can't do that if you're constantly saying this person's a monster and this person's this and that. It's like that's not a conversation. That's just verbal violence at that point.
Yeah, it's invective. It's ad hominem, and nothing's happening there. I won't give Alex Jones a shot because I've seen enough of him. I saw him on Piers Morgan, and I thought he's a performance artist. He's not here to do anything for the discourse. He's here to enrich himself. Absolutely. And I can't take much of Ben Shapiro because I see debate team tactics. And now he's got that down. But if he's up against, like, Sam Harris was on his show, and Ben was a different animal with Sam there because they were talking about religion and philosophy and things like that. And Ben basically deferred to him almost the entire time because Sam, you don't get over easy on Sam. He's a bit too sharp for that. And I thought Ben Shapiro, when he had Andrew Yang on, I thought this should be the way it always should be. Andrew Yang, it's not like he won Ben Shapiro over. But Shapiro actually didn't get a chance to dance his dance. They had a back and forth, and Yang is very, very, it's deceptive with Yang. He's extremely smart, and he really knows his shit, but he doesn't hit you with a bunch of 75-cent words, a bunch of highfalutin, intelligentsia-fueled language. He just makes a lot of sense. And with Shapiro, Shapiro didn't have a chance to do this dance of outrage.
It's funny because I don't know which show you're talking about, but if it was the Shapiro Sunday special you're talking about where he sat down with Andrew Yang,
it might have been.
Yeah, that particular show, Shapiro is very. I mean, I have to give him this credit regardless. He will always hear the other person. He will always. He invited Yang on a show for a reason, and those two actually. And he said this many times that he really likes Andrew Yang. He thinks Andrew Yang's a really great guy, and he just disagrees with everything that he has. But Yang, I mean, talk about authentic. I think that's the reason why he resonated with so many people is because.
Well, that was my guy, and he just didn't get through.
I mean, I totally get it. I'm like, again, I don't necessarily agree with his ideas, but I love the fact he's an honest, decent guy that actually wants to help make things better. And isn't that kind of the goal? Isn't that really who you want? Occupying the highest office, someone who's smarter than you. They used to say that in the days of George W. Bush, right? Where he's, well, I'm just the kind of guy that you have a beer with. I don't want to have a fucking beer with you. You're the president. I want you to be smart. I want it to be the West Wing all the time. I want to be walking and talking. I want to be able to, I don't want to know what you're talking about because you're so fucking smart, because you're talking so fast and you're changing rooms so much and I got to follow. I don't want, this is supposed to be the West Wing. That should be the model right there. That should be the White House. Not having a fucking beer with the yokel. That's not no. You know?
So you need Aaron Sorkin to be the speechwriter for every candidate. Just look, I just want to hear that dialogue, okay? Yeah. Just make me. Now I'm Vince Vaughn. Look, I just want to hear some dialogue. All right, just make me feel like I'm dumb. All right, just make me feel like I'm fucking stupid, instead of the goddamn Mensa president right now when I'm listening to you talk. All right. God, it's so funny that I do last season for F is for Family. I do a lot of like Vince Vaughn's scratch for his character. And I'm thinking, because we don't know what Vince was going to do. We just knew Vince was going to play the part.
Right.
And so, all right, just do your Vince Vaughn. So I do my Vince Vaughn, and we have a great time. We have a lot of laughs. All right, everything's great. And then Vince comes in, and he does the character completely different.
Yeah.
He's a Southern guy. And I thought, I thought, well, I guess the timing maybe was good. Maybe my lines took as long as his lines.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's one of my great honors. is scratching for Sam Rockwell. I gotta say that's one of my
And
great.
it's a very impressive Sam Rockwell, and I've done like one episode of Sam early on before they said, nah, let's just have Trevor do it, you know. And Sam's got something you can hold on to, you know, when you're finding the voice. Absolutely. But there's just a way that you do it is just you're right there in his wavelength, you know.
Well, I'm a huge Rockwell fan. I think he's just a master of the craft. He's a master.
Right.
But to hear him on our show too, I'm just like, oh man, he's just perfect for this. He's just perfect for it.
Yeah. And a lot of times when you get to see these guys are working on these shows, you go, I wonder how they chose so-and-so to be on this and so-and-so to be on this. And you start going back through their careers and you realize, oh, well, Sam Rockwell was in Iron Man 2, and Iron Man 2 was produced, I think, by Peter Billingsley, who was also producing Iron Man. And they know he knows Vince Vaughn, and Vince Vaughn is producing F is for Family. And these guys, I think, go back. I actually met Peter Billingsley in like 1997 when I was doing comedy with guys that Peter knew. And Peter at the time owned a production house that made trailers.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the things he was doing. And he was just like, hey, I'm a fan of comedy. He was this nice guy to talk to and all that. And then like 10 years later, he's in Iron Man and he's producing Iron Man. And I thought, holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You know, and like, I'm not surprised.
I had that really stupid experience with him.
Yeah.
Because I met him in person and I was like, this guy's oddly familiar. Why is he so familiar?
Christmas Story.
Yeah, but I'd never seen Christmas Story.
Oh, you'd never seen it?
No, I had never seen it. So that Christmas, like a few months after recording the first season, I'm at home. I'm with my friend Sam. He's like, we'll put on the Christmas Story. I'm like, oh God, I've never seen it. I'm watching the show going, I feel like I've seen this before. Why? And it was halfway through and I went, oh my God, that's my boss.
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
Yep.
And then I talked to Mike Price. I told him the story and he said, yeah, maybe not bring up Christmas Story with Peter. That's a source. I was like, okay.
Is he just tired? I guess he's just tired of hearing about it.
You know.
Yeah. You know, it's like I have done other stuff.
Shoot your eye out. Shoot your eye out, Peter.
Yeah. Do you want to still be an F is for Family? Yeah. Okay, then don't bring it up.
Maybe not bring it up.
Don't bring it up. You can bring up all the other movies he's produced. But seriously, that's an incredible career to go from working as much as you do as a kid and then to become one of the most successful producers in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a hell of a second act.
Yeah.
Right
and then
there.
to have to slum it with jackasses like us on a stupid little Netflix cartoon.
Yeah, I know. And just to think,
Poor bastard.
okay, fine. Yeah. And then Gaumont is one of the producers of the show, you know, one of the entities behind the show. And Gaumont is this major French production company. And I'm thinking, I can't believe they're making this animated series.
Yeah.
You know?
Narcos or F is for Family. Same thing, basically.
Yeah, they're peas in a pod. I mean, you choose one, they suggest the other one. See, we take these turns. We don't see them coming. We just take these turns. This is what you know what? This is a conversation that we would have had if there was no pandemic. I said, all right, I tell you what, I'll meet you out at this bar. Yep. And you get this round, I'll get the next round, and then I'll be on the floor because I haven't had more than 2 drinks in a day since, oh my God, like in 15 years.
Oh, lucky guy.
Yeah.
I wish.
Well, you know, there's a different rhythm to life right now, and I understand if people are doing things they wouldn't normally do as a coping mechanism. I mean, my God, you have to make sense of it all somehow. But I remember it was back in June, I went for my yearly checkup. And, you know, they do it in the office because, you know, it's a yearly checkup. We got to get in there. And so, you know, the doc's wearing his visor, I'm wearing my mask, we're having a conversation. And I said, have you noticed a lot of changes in people's health from the pandemic? He goes, actually, most of my patients are a little bit healthier. They're not eating out as much. They're cooking for themselves more and they're exercising more because they got nothing else to do.
Right.
And I thought, I wonder how long that's going to last. Because as soon as a viable vaccine hits and everyone can take their masks off safely, my God, I don't know what we're going to do to ourselves as a country, but it's going to be one long Cheesecake Factory visit. I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of people suggesting, many people are saying that
just people.
This could be, you know, the Roaring 20s all over again, you know, this time next year, once Moderna and Pfizer roll that shit out, you know.
Well, I think the one thing that may help is that if the vaccine is viable, I think it's one of those two-stage vaccines where you have one hit and then 6 months later you have another. So you get some immunity and then you get the rest of it. So it might be after the first hit, people kind of lose their minds a little bit, but after the second hit, it's yeah, it's gonna be Cirque du Soleil in the streets.
It could be. I mean, Vegas could have a whole resurgence.
Oh man.
Buy your stock now in
That will be interesting. I would definitely want to own an airline stock.
Oh yeah.
When the pandemic lifts and own a hotel stock, I mean,
I'm telling you, man, I got back in the market a couple weeks ago. I hadn't been in a long time, and a whole bunch of my stuff is in that stuff.
Is it really? Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea.
1 year's time.
You got to know how to time it. That's true. Yeah, and I think this is what we plan on doing because I am supremely confident that we will get through this. As far as the pandemic goes, I don't know what we're going to do about our phones, about our technology. I truly don't know. I truly don't know. I don't know if we're capable of overcoming it, but I do see it as, if you've seen the movie 2001, which I've seen many times, and I've read the book. The movie is phenomenal. The book was written at the same time as the movie. Kubrick and Clark were making both of them together. They would share notes. So one of the things about the monolith in 2001, spoiler alert, is its alien life form. They're doing what they call space farming. They're lonely. They live light years away and they're lonely. They've reached such an advanced stage of existence that there's nothing else for them to do. They just want company. And they're looking for viable civilizations that they can help advance to their level so they can have company, basically. And the monolith is this large black prism that they just, boom, set down, and it finds viable species and it gives them a little jolt. Little boost, helps them turn an evolutionary corner, and it helps them progress so they don't die or go extinct. And the one that comes along in 2001 happens when man learns how to use tools. Why does he learn how to use tools? Because he was starving. He was not a carnivore. He was only eating nuts and berries, and he wasn't getting enough protein. And the race, the human species, at the time it was ape-like, but it was dying out. The monolith appears and gives it a jolt, and it learns how to use tools, and it learns how to stalk and kill prey, eat meat, and get stronger, and takes us all the way up to where we are now. The point being, this is something I think that we have to learn how to use appropriately, or it will destroy us. I don't mean to sound apocalyptic, but we need another monolith to show up and teach us, give us that jolt as to how to get around this. And the funny thing is, I told this to a friend of mine who's a Trump supporting friend. He's a very smart guy. And he says, oddly enough, you notice how your phone is shaped kind of like the monolith. It's this long black thing that we have to learn how to use, and it has to show us how to evolutionarily advance. I think we need a monolith moment to show us how to cope with technology. Otherwise, we could off
true.
ourselves.
But you know, the my perspective on it is I look at well, it's not even mine. I stole it from somebody far smarter than I. But it's when you look at the great technologies that have shaped our current society, right? Like the telephone, the railway, the factory system, right? All of these things started out as these. They started off as playthings for the rich, normally, right? And then they became ubiquitous. Then they became very useful, and then they became monopolizing to the point where, oh my God, the horseless carriage is driving all the buggy makers out of business, and oh no, this is such a disaster, and what's going to happen? Our whole society is going to crumble. And what happens every single time? The government steps in with regulation and says, okay, all right, this is how we're going to deal with this. And they do it every single time for all of these new inventions. So I think, and this could be the one thing that both Democrats and Republicans actually agree on, is the fact that the tech companies need to be regulated somehow. Because I think we're there. I think we're at that point now where the horseless buggy guy's out of work and someone needs to do something about those horseless carriages ripping up the roads. You know what I mean? And I think that it may be the one issue that both sides can get together on and go, you know what? This is fucking us both. I think, think we need to deal with this.
Well, yeah, that's what my wife and I talk about. She gets outraged far more than I do. She just has an injustice detector that is finely tuned And whereas I just sort of go, oh, yeah, that's a shame. And then I go back, where's the popcorn? Was that? Yeah, okay. And she'll say that she'll see a news channel, and they'll report something that's just untrue. Usually it has to do with Fox News, or OAN is her new thing. Like, we don't watch OAN, we don't look at OAN. I'll occasionally breeze by it and go, yeah, that's fucking awful, and then I'll just keep going. But she'll say they shouldn't be allowed to say that. I say, I don't know what law you can enact to keep them from saying that. They're not slandering anyone, and they're not libeling anyone.
And those are the violence. Exactly.
They're not using fighting words, which it's not just something you hear in a Western. It's a literal legal precedent, fighting words. So they're not inciting violence against a particular person at a specific time. Like, you can say, I think you should kill all the doctors. You can say that. You cannot say, I think you should kill so-and-so, this particular doctor who resides at this address right now. That's illegal. So when she justifiably gets outraged at a news platform that spreads obvious, blatant misinformation, I say to her, I understand, and yet legally they are within their rights to do it. So unless you do the equivalent of warning labels on cigarettes, I don't know how else you get around it. That's a deep discussion that needs to be had legally and politically. The problem is these news organizations are owned by such massive companies that they can pay politicians to look the other way.
Yeah.
So then you need campaign finance reform so that you can't have money influencing decisions. But the only way you get that is if you get enough politicians to vote it into law. And how can you do that when news organizations are driving their constituents so far apart that none of them can risk their political lives to vote on it? And this is why I say, fuck it, it's Madrid. Let's go move to Madrid. The apparatus we need to use to change this to make life more livable, I think, is already structurally compromised. And so that's why I get cynical sometimes.
Well, you can also understand, I mean, this is exactly the reason why both Bernie and Trump had such huge followings in 2016.
Yeah.
This is exactly the reason, is because people are, whether they can explain it or not, they're aware of this happening, and they know it's wrong, and they know it needs to be changed, but they don't know how. And they have two populists, one on the left, and one on the right, who come along and basically say the same thing. Everything's got to go. Everything's got to go. We got to start again. We have to have a revolution, or we have to drain the swamp. Or, I mean, whatever. It's the same fucking thing, right?
What was your take on Bernie?
I saw Bernie speak a week before he announced his candidacy to run in 2016. I saw him at a hotel in at the EDGEVOICE. And I have to say, I was so swept up by his charisma. Mm-hmm. I remember watching this guy speak, and I was just like, this guy's the real thing. This guy is the real thing. He's the real thing. And I donated to his campaign. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even vote, like I said, but you gave him $100 because, then years went on. My perspective shifted. I realized now if I had to vote for Bernie Sanders, I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But I certainly thought he also radiates an authenticity. He radiates a genuine desire to change things for the better, but he's also further on the radical side of the left.
Right. So that's where he lost you, that his ideas were a little bit too much, you think? Yeah. Okay. And the funny thing is, I believe you when you say the authenticity, because I liked him in the beginning as well. I just thought kind of the same thing. Like in the primary in California in 2016, I voted for him. I thought, let's give him a shot. I'm not a Democrat anyway. It doesn't matter. And I live in California. Hillary was going to win the state by 30, which she did.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, the authenticity is what I always remembered about him. Politically, he's the exact same person he was in 1968. He's right where you left him. Authenticity is the one thing I know that Trump has never had and never will have, which has always amazed me. It's like, he's telling you people that he's going to drain the swamp. You have no idea what you are letting yourself in for. You have no idea the amount of corruption you are about to see. And by God, if he didn't deliver on
And yet,
corruption party.
That's the one thing that Trump supporters always tend to say, or
I
always
know.
say, that they're so enamored by his authenticity. And
I know.
I think I understand what they're trying to say there, because I think what they're trying to say is that he's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid to say the thing that might be whatever politically incorrect, or whatever the case is. And there are people that are very enamored by that, because they feel like the far left has taken over the realm, taken over the levers of cultural power, and you're not allowed to say it's not allowed. And here's a guy who comes along and says, "I'm going to say whatever I want," and so they think, "Oh, well, that's authentic." Well,
Yeah.
that's a type of authenticity, but he's lying to your face. How many times does he have to say to you, "I love the people who don't have education. I love them. I think the best, because they'll vote for whatever they'll." And I'm like, do you not? Does no one else hear what he's telling you? He's going to grift you, and you're fine with that.
That's That's something my wife would say. She said she used to do this a lot. She'd say, Chavez did that. Right. Chavez did that. She said, Chavez told people in advance he was going to fuck them.
Right.
And he did it, and they didn't care because they thought he was very charismatic. And yes, I agree. Trump is very charismatic to certain people, not to everybody.
No, but he's clearly not.
Clearly not. But he's extremely charismatic to certain people because they love that he says things that liberals hate. They love that others hate him. And the people they hate happen to hate him. And yes, it's true. When he talks incessantly about how awful China is and his ties are made in China, that should tell you something. When he talks about illegal immigrants and he hires them to help build his casinos, that should tell you something. And so, there's a way to, as they say in acting, if you can fake authenticity, then you've got it made. Well, he learned how to fake a certain kind of authenticity that people just absolutely loved. And you've always got to be on the lookout for that kind of thing. And, it can come from anywhere.
He really is one of those guys that comes along once in a generation. He is one of those guys that has this indefinable charisma and this indefinable magnetism. And as I said before, thank God he was a man of little vision. Because if he had the nationalistic fervor that a Stalin or a Hitler or a Pol Pot, or the ideological fervor of a Pol Pot, or any of those fine fellas throughout the 20th century, then we'd be in real trouble. Way more trouble than we are. So I thank God every day, a God that I don't actually believe in, but I thank him anyway. That he's a tiny little man of no vision. I'm just that's the one.
Yeah, we had that going for us. Plus, we had a nation with a pedigree that was different than the other nations that were taken over. Yes. A lot of the other nations that were taken over by despots were former monarchies. Yes. So there was already a DNA strain of people just being okay with being told what to do and never questioning the leader. And
I've said before that America, there's something that's different about America than the rest of the countries of the world, and that is certainly one of those things. This idea of, the old cliche of "don't tread on me." That's a real thing. That's a real difference. Where, I've never experienced a country before where people are so fiercely independent. Don't you fucking tell me what to do. And I got to say, that kind of appeals to me. I'm like, I like that. I like that there's a system in place that supports that, independent.
And it's like any other tool. You better make sure you use that attitude properly. Like, you realize a mask will help save you and others. Don't you fucking tell me what to do. Well, I'm merely telling you how to not kill yourself or others. I thought I told you not to tell me what to...
Yeah. Okay. Fascism! Totalitarianism! You're telling me how not to kill my neighbors?
Okay. All right, fine. Yeah, but we as a country had just enough firewalls in place to survive this stress test. But I think John Meacham, the historian, was on Bill Maher a year or so ago, and he said Bill was constantly flabbergasted that people would vote for Trump and that Trump was president. And John Meacham said, I'm surprised it took us this long to get a Trump. We're over 200 years old. We should have had one by now. And it's true. Trump announced the candidacy for president, I believe, in 2000. It was either 2000 or 96 or '04. It was right in that pocket and didn't get anywhere. So, and he was the exact same person back then, I assure you. Trump, since his balls dropped, has been the exact same person his entire life. There is no arc to him. He is always right where you left him, okay? So he was the exact same person. The ecosystem wanted nothing to do with him. It did not exist for him to exploit. But in 2016, everything lined up just right.
Right. And, you know, these people that do come along once in a generation, if they don't have fertile soil in which to take root, they get nowhere. So
exactly.
I hate any comparison to Adolf Hitler, but just for the purpose of this one thing, Hitler himself could not have come to power if it wasn't for the Treaty of Versailles. There's no way that he would have found a platform if, you know, the Allies hadn't screwed Germany over so badly after World War I, right? There were so many elements in play, and the fact that they came from the Kaiser, and there was this, you know, the whole royalty of, you know.
And Bismarck needed to be old enough to not give a rat's ass about giving up power. Like, I just want to go to some place and ski and eat, and I don't care anymore. Here, fine, run the country. What do I give a fuck? Yeah, all these things.
As long as you name the battleship after me, I'm fine.
Right. Don't name a dirigible after me. I know what happens there. So, yeah, these things need to happen just such a way. But they do. Over a long enough period of time, everything happens. Everything eventually happens. Yeah. So it's... And again, you could spot another reason why maybe this did happen. Not enough people knew their history. I am not an expert in history, but I know enough so that when a guy comes down an escalator in a building with his fucking name on it and says what he says, I know to be wary. I don't think enough people did. I don't think enough people had historical perspective to see when somebody talks like that and walks like that, only one thing is coming. That this is all they're able to bring you. They'll dress it up a different way, but that's what they do. You've got to know. You've got to know. And it's right. If you go too far to the left end of the spectrum, you can give away too much. You know, you can say, hey, look, we're going to let government handle this. Yeah, but you've got to eventually stop. You've got to preserve enough capitalism to be able to say, yes, I would like to have some choices for me. Thank you very much. So, you've got to know when this comes, what it looks like.
And this is why I am such a fan of the American Constitution. I really am. I'm a huge fan of it because, you know, never before was there a system put in place to allow people to really figure out their differences using a series of political machinations that didn't rely on bloodlines or groups or nothing. It relied on merit. It relied on your willingness to discuss the facts and to come to a compromise to get things done for the benefit of all people. And I'm like, that's pretty amazing. That's never happened before. Not like that, you know?
There is a lot of the Age of Reason in there, a lot of the Age of Enlightenment. I forget all the different philosophers that influenced them. Locke was one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And the funny thing is, a lot of the founding fathers were deists. They weren't even very religious. Right. They knew that, okay, countries typically don't have a charter like this. They just sort of, because it had all been kingdoms. Yeah. And usually a kingdom just sort of, it's whatever the king wants. And they'll, you know, there's the Magna Carta, which was an incredible document because they actually put down a system of laws that, you know, there's the Domesday Book. We're going to start measuring everybody's land and we're going to start taking a census. And obviously civilizations had done things like this. But yes, I think what a lot of people don't understand, and even I think don't have a real grasp of it, just how unique our Constitution is. Countries usually don't get to start that way. Right. They don't usually get to begin with a document like that. Right. So, I mean, most of the time, they were either a part of a kingdom that has just continued to exist, or they were a former, basically, subject of a kingdom, and they sort of start their own charter, but a lot of that happened after the United States came into being. Because the Age of Empires ended or started to wane right around the time the U.S. started to come up in the world.
Right, exactly. And then that became its own beacon of a new way of doing things. Yeah. And had influence on the French Revolution. It had influence on all the places too. you look at the birth of democracy in Greece. I mean, they that was hard fought to get there.
Yeah. And it
They
didn't even last.
yeah. I mean, they had a few good decades, basically, a few good
Yeah.
golden years there. You know,
And then the Romans came.
yeah, yeah.
How did you get into voiceover there, Trevor?
Well, it's the standard story. I've been doing it since a little kid, and then fell backwards into it and didn't know it was a career. And then one day, auditioned for it's so boring. The story it's so boring.
After we talk about, different political movements and history and the importance of nuance and
Yeah.
seeing both sides, it's like, do people really want to know how you came up with the character in that video game? Well, actually, some do. In fact, most people aren't going to even get this far because in the first 90 seconds, I didn't start asking you about voiceover, and they're just going, well, fuck that. Let me just keep fast forwarding. No,
So
they're still on politics.
Is that the focus of your show, of your audience? Is they want to know about that stuff?
Well, let's put it this way. It's never my focus, but it's the focus of my audience. I have about 50,000 subscribers, right?
Okay.
And most of them are here because they love a character I do in a video game called Apex Legends. And they love Pathfinder, and they love the game. And most of them come and watch those videos. And when I have an actor on, if they really like them, usually it's because they're a part of the game. If they're an actor that they know and they like, we talk about the business, we talk about process and craft, but we also talk about life. And if you want to talk about your journey, if you want to talk about mental health, if you want to talk about the state of the world. David Sobolov and I had a conversation where it was about 45 minutes voiceover, and then we just took an abrupt hard left into politics. Like deep. I had to cut out about 15 minutes of it because we were making predictions about the election.
Oh, yes.
And we ended up being fairly accurate. Like I predicted Biden would get more than 300 electoral college votes, and he's going to get that. But we were still saying what if, and I thought that's not going to really play well, but we left in a lot of it.
Yeah.
And he's Canadian. He's with you. He says, I think sometimes my brethren on the left go a little too far. They're not empathetic enough. Maybe they need to cut people on the right a little bit of a break, you know? And we're not excusing the people on the right. We're just saying, how about the prodigal son? Let them return, you know? And I'm not religious either, but I'll go biblical if I can.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, we can take these hard left and right turns because that's what a conversation should be. I don't want to keep playing to only one niche. I'm daring my viewers with every single podcast I do to listen to something they weren't expecting. And most of them aren't going to do it. I'm going to be honest with you. This video is not going to get 50,000 views the first week. It's going to get a fraction of that, like all of them do, unless I bring on somebody who is like deeply entrenched in the game that they love.
Right.
So yeah, people will watch. You've got fans. I've got some fans. People are going to watch, and some people might take it to the comments, and then we might see this flame war happen in the comments about Trump, and it'll be my fault because I started it. With technology being what it is, the fact that you can have a full setup at home and do everything you need to do to work on these wonderful shows, do you sometimes wonder if you need to remain in LA?
Oh, dude. This has been the conversation all year.
It's an expensive town. I need to stay here. I'm on The Simpsons, and when the pandemic lifts, I just know that we're going to go back to Fox. We're going to record there, and I can't wait. I will love it. But if I didn't have that, if I could live anywhere, I would think about it because I want to have a lot of space and room. So what goes through your mind?
Well, so I have a separate studio building on the property, and I put a bunch of money into the booth this year to make it just
right.
I've had techs tell me it's one of the top 3 best sounding rooms in LA. It's great.
Right.
So I'm very proud of it. I love it. I love it in here. I do everything in this building. But it is very expensive, obviously, to be here.
Yeah.
The city was very unstable over the summer with all the rioting and stuff, and it makes you think, do I really want to be around here? My situation is this. I look at this and I go, this right now, of all of us working remotely, I have a very good setup. So technicians know, they trust me. They're like, you're going to sound great, so it's fine. Presumably, if I was to move to, I don't know, Texas or something, I would have the same kind of audio setup and it would be fine. And sound great. But I think to myself, okay, this could last. This could become the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Not like every session's going to be remote, but I
Right.
think what could be the norm is, oh, today half the cast is remote and half the cast is coming in. I
Mm-hmm.
think that could become the norm. And if that's the case, then yeah, I could work anywhere I want. If it's not the norm, if people go back to work and they assume, okay, let's get back because it's better when it's in person, because it
Yeah.
is. It's
Yeah, it
like,
is.
but at the beginning of this with a table read,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not there in person with the immediacy of the audience, it's not the same thing. And the writers don't get the same experience to hear their script
Right.
with a reaction, which is the whole fucking point of a
Yeah.
table. So I have always believed I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've always believed, I used to teach a lot too, and I would tell these students at various universities and colleges and acting schools and stuff that you have to be in the city. You have to be in town. You have to be committed to the place,
Mm-hmm.
because when the call comes, you got to be there.
Yeah.
And so, especially Canadians that try and do the back and forth thing, he who tries to exist in both cities winds up existing in neither.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe as well, I'm a writer and I have a writing career here as well. And I know that you would think, oh, well, you can do that from anywhere. Yeah, but you can't take the lunch meeting from everywhere. For that, you got to be here. And so I think, I don't know if I want to stay in LA itself. Like I've thought, well, maybe I'll go to, maybe I'll go to the coast. Maybe I'll go up the coast a little bit, or maybe I'll go to
Yeah.
Riverside, or who the hell knows,
Yeah,
right?
that's one drive in and you're okay.
Yeah, right. Or Palm Springs or something.
Right.
That's doable.
Yeah.
But that's not what I was thinking. What I was thinking was, well, no. I should move to a place where there's much lower taxes, lower cost of living, like Austin or Dallas or
Mm-hmm.
Nashville or whatever. But I've never been to any of those places really, so I don't know anything about it.
I got family in Austin. I could tell you all about Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, there's just a part of me that says, in a year's time, once this pandemic is over, people are going to want to go back. They're going to want to go back to at least a semblance of what it was like. And if I'm not here for that, like Roger Craig Smith, he packed up and bought a place in Boise, and that's where he is now. And he's planning on being there as sort of a permanent thing. And he doesn't know whether, what's going to happen in a year. He said that to me directly. He's like, we'll see if I'm still going to be desirable.
He says, I may have to get an apartment,
Yeah, right. And he's totally willing to do that, and that's great.
Yeah.
I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to have to be in a situation where I live in Dallas, but now I have to fly in for 4 days and stay in some apartment in LA because I have to be in the room that week.
Right.
Because what's the point of living in Dallas then? I'm just basically still living in LA, except now I have to fly back and forth all the time. And I did that to Vancouver the first 2 years I was here, and it was a nightmare. I was in the air more often than I was on the ground, and it got very tiring. So I don't know. What's the industry going to look like? I'm very hesitant to make any assumptions. As much as I would love to be able to buy a big, beautiful house for less than $500,000 somewhere, and have all of that stuff, I don't think it's realistic to assume that I can do this from anywhere else. Because I'm fairly established here now. I've done very well, but at the same time, I like the people, and I like with the humans, and I like being with the humans in the room, and the laughs and the stuff, and then going for lunch afterwards. And I like that. I miss human fucking beings. I miss looking into someone's eyes rather than looking at their eyes, looking at my chest, which is what any kind of Zoom is, because you're never looking at the camera. You're always looking at the other person.
Right.
So the humanity is lost there, right? When you're just talking to these ones and zeros instead of an actual human, and I miss that. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And I've put so much work into this property now, into this house.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of renovations and everything, and now the house is exactly the way I want it. Do I really want to walk away from it right when I got it comfortable? I don't know. Seems like
There's a lot to be said for this city. I've lived here for 23 years. That's longer than I've ever lived in any other city. And so I'm more of an Angelino, more of a Californian than I am a Georgian. And I grew up in Georgia, but I moved here, and it's been 23 years. And yes, living somewhere else is also part of, the arc of life. And my wife and I would like to maybe give our kids a chance to experience another place, but it would be when my career allows for it. So that becomes the question. Does your career allow for it? So if you're an A-list star, you can live anywhere. They'll patch you in no matter what. They'll work around you. That's not what we are. That's not what our value is in this business. Now, if you're just doing video games and commercial stuff, yeah, I've never done an ensemble video games. Never happened. Ensemble commercials, extremely rare. Usually you can just do those from anywhere. But we do animation too. There are ensemble animation productions that thrive in that atmosphere, and there's a reason for that. Like you say, it's because it's so much better when you can do it that way. And then you think to yourself, even if I could leave and I did leave, you have to be okay with losing some of what LA offers you. Some of the best museums anywhere, some of the best weather anywhere, very, very cool activities and events all the time. Yes, there's a lot of tiresome aspects of it. Yes, the traffic is the worst in the world, well, worst in a developed country. I don't want to compare it to what it's like in Caracas right now, because my wife's told me it's pretty awful. But the point being, there's so much about this place, and I've built so many memories here. I would miss going to the Huntington. I would miss going to Jerry's Deli. I would miss going to the Burger Lounge that we now have made a regular thing. I would miss all kinds of things that we built a life doing, in addition to the fact that, yes, I would miss hanging out with my voiceover tribe. Yeah. Just the audition waiting rooms. A voiceover audition waiting room is one of the most fun places on earth, because nobody's hung up about whether or not they're going to get it. They're here to party. It's not an on-camera waiting room. It's a different animal.
Exactly.
I'd miss some of that. So you'd have to find your tribe somewhere else. You could find your tribe in Austin. Austin prides itself on being unique and weird, but it's growing. It's growing with a lot of former Angelinos. Yes. So the traffic is starting to look like LA. The property is starting to look like LA, although you can still buy a damn we could buy acres in Austin for what we paid for our condo here. Acres. Yeah. So, it's a question everybody has to ask themselves.
And everybody is. I mean, I've had this conversation with virtually all of my colleagues this year at some point, because everyone's had that thought, like, well, do we really need to be here, or do we want to be here? And it's different if if you're raising kids and they're going to school and all that stuff, but even then, it's like, I don't know. Because I never really had like a burning desire to live in LA. That was never, I didn't want to, I didn't want to come here at all. No, I had no interest in the States. None. Zero. I had a perfectly great career back home. Everything was awesome. And then one thing led to another, and it was this opportunity of, we should come down. I'm like, I don't want to go to fucking LA. Are you kidding? All right, I'll go and I'll live in LA for a year and do the thing, and then I'll go home and get back to work. But things worked out, and next thing I know, I was working a lot, and I thought, I guess I'm staying here. But so for the past 7 years, I haven't been able to shake this idea that this is just a working vacation. So, you know what I mean? Like, well,
maybe it is.
But it's just working vacation.
It's a 7-year. It's a 7-year vacation.
7-year vacation. Yeah.
I think not enough people realize, because we come from this this tradition of working one job and just working it your whole life and then retiring. But our generation was probably the last one that could do that. I have high school alumni that got one job, kept it, and they're thinking about their retirement. It's 15 years away, but they're able to think about their retirement. And I think that's the last generation that could do that. The conditions existed for that. Everybody else has to sort of get used to the idea that you may choose one thing and it may reject you after a while, or you may reject it after a while. You may say, I'm interested in doing something else. A person might have 5 careers in their life and be very happy with all of them. Yep. So our careers that we used to think of were these 40, 50-hour weeks, and there were these 9-to-5 jobs, and everything was much more in one particular lane, almost a rut, as it were. That's not really the way the world turns now, especially not here. And I think people would do well to open their thinking up a bit and think, maybe I will have 3 or 4 careers, and they'll all be successful. Maybe one of them would be horrible, but I needed to try it. Yeah. So, you can do this from anywhere. You know that, and you'll be able to work from anywhere. But yes, if you were to move out of town, you'd have a different career. Yeah. You might work just as much, but you wouldn't have the access to the people in the city.
Right.
And there's a lot to be said.
Totally. That's what it really comes down to. Every single time I think about it, I come back to that moment of, okay, but I can't take the lunch meeting if I live in another state. It's just not going to happen. And that's that spontaneous thing that can happen that has got me so far in my career here because, oh, well, I was at the session and, got to know the producer, and now I'm at a poker game with all these other producers and writers, and next thing I know, I'm being offered this job because I know a guy from here. That shit don't happen if I'm living in Nashville.
Right.
That only happens if you're here in the room. And as long as the room is still in LA, then that's kind of where I got to be, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the dream factory is. This is where all the sausages get made. A lot of things do originate somewhere else, and there are factories in other cities that, if you were to go to Austin, Robert Rodriguez is set up there. Some other filmmakers are set up there, but it's not like here. And yes, there is something special about walking into Disney Toons, into their studios, or Warner Brothers, or Sony, or Fox. You're trotting the same boards that Charlton Heston, Gregory Peck, Jack Nicholson. Medal of Honor is a game that's coming out in about a month. When this video is up, it'll be much sooner. Medal of Honor is a Respawn game. We did performance capture at Chaplin Studios over, Jim Henson Studios, but it used to be Charlie Chaplin Studios. I was walking on the same studio floor that Charlie Chaplin walked on, and I was giving a performance on the same floor that he gave a performance on, and that was not lost on me.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is why I specifically wanted to come to LA. I, like most of us, I had LA in my sights, and I made it happen, and I got to walk the same halls, and I'll never ever be able to replace that anywhere else in the world. Somewhere else in the world will offer me something different.
Right.
And I'm sure it'll be amazing. But this specific experience I've been getting, I can only get here.
Exactly.
I have to factor that in.
And when I moved down here as well, I had no intention of staying. I had no intention of succeeding at all.
Mm-hmm.
I literally thought I'll be here a year. I'll book some guest star in a Disney princess show. That'll be that. I'll go home. I'll do a radio spot. That'll be enough there. I worked in LA. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But when I came down here and I started to work and I started to see, oh, wait a minute, I'm on the lot. I'm on the Warner Brothers lot now. I'm working at the ranch where they did, Bugs Bunny and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. But the other thing that always went through my head was, if you go, say, if you're Canadian and you go to Vancouver and you fail, okay, well, that's okay. There's other places you can hit, other places you could try. But if you go to LA and you fail, that's it. This is the Mecca. There's no other place. This is the place. So if you come and succeed, congratulations. But if you come and you fail, it's not like there's some other Hollywood you know what I mean? So that was always in my head.
I mean, you can go other places and probably do well, but yes, the ceiling here is the sky.
Yeah.
I was in Orlando for 4 years. There was a low ceiling.
Right.
You couldn't really make a living as an actor there. You could get parts and you could get your training wheels off, and then you came here, and that's what I did.
Right. In Van there was a ceiling too, but we all at that time when I was working in Vancouver, there was like 30 of us that did everything. Mm-hmm. So we had a very, very comfortable lifestyle. It was great. Yeah. Very tight-knit community. Mm-hmm. We got paid a lot of money. It was just a great life. The one that I was hesitant to leave.
Of course. It's a golden cage.
It was. It totally was. And it was a cage because I started to realize that I can only get so far here. I'm never going to be. So here was my litmus test, okay? And it's so stupid. It's so egotistical, but this was the litmus test. For years and years and years, I'd be on a plane, okay? And you're flying to wherever you're going, and the person beside you would say, oh, you get talking, and that person would say, so what do you do? And you'd say, well, actually, I do cartoon voices. And they'd say, oh, really? That's so good. They'd do that whole thing. And then inevitably the question, so what would I have seen you on? And I'd say it, and I'd see their eyes glaze over. Didn't know shows were that I was doing. And my litmus test was, one day I will be on a show where I say the name and they'll go, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
So that is when I got the opportunity to come here. Was like, aha! If I work in LA, I'll be able to work on those high profile shows that I can say to the person, the stranger on the plane.
Yeah.
Like, that's the measure of success. Does the stranger on the plane who you'll never see again recognize the name of the show you're on right now, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? That's a very artist thing to say too, because we're always thinking of an audience. You have to. You have to consider the audience. Now you have to do it your way if you want to be a real artist, but you should never shun them or dismiss them. You should keep them in mind. And if you're thinking about, well, if this person recognizes the show I'm on, that means I reached them. They're aware of it. In some strange, passive, indirect way, I have reached them. The things I have decided to do to express my art have made it into that person's consciousness. So I know that I'm not just jerking off here, you know, because so much of what we do is masturbatory. I know I shouldn't say that on a Zoom call. But so much of what we do just seems to be so self-indulgent. But when you realize you've reached somebody, when you can have an airplane conversation and realize, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, it's harder to get that in a smaller market. And that's why so many people come here. This gives you the chance to hit that.
Yeah. So for me, when I got F is for Family, that was a big deal. Because Mike just basically gave me that job because I had known him from Lego Star Wars, because I was his Emperor Palpatine for years and years on Lego Star Wars. And so when this came up, I remember I was at a Simpsons table read actually when
were you?
Not performing, but as an audience. And Mike got the call. He just got the call there. So at that table read,
oh
he
nice,
came up to me and went, "Hey, I need you. And I was like, "I'm yours."
Wait a minute. Mike knows he's not supposed to have his cell phone on during a table read. So right away, I got to tell Mike next time. No, that's an awesome story. You're at one show and you find out you get to be on another show.
Yeah. And that never happened back home. That when back home in the Vancouver system, in the Vancouver studio system, you basically did a show and then bang, you were set to zero.
Right.
You were never given jobs. That didn't happen. You had to come in and audition for that one-line role. There used to be this thing called the Walk of Shame. I hope they don't do it anymore, but I'm sure they do. The Walk of Shame audition was always this. There'd be a show, and you'd be called in at 8:45 a.m. with 3 other guys. The show records at 9, and there's a guest spot in the episode. And all 4 of you go in, you do your audition, and whoever gets the job stays for the session after you do the Walk of Shame. And I'm like, that's got to be wrong. That has to be wrong. That has to be breaking the rules somewhere.
No, it happens. It happens here. It doesn't happen anymore because there's a pandemic, and it hardly happens even before the pandemic, but for ADR, for voice matching.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't experience this more, but I did that a lot because you would get called. All right, you got to be at Sony today, or it's the end of the day. You got to be there tomorrow. You have to voice match this person, and they'll call in like 8 or 10 of you. Only one's going to get to stay. Right then and there, they choose, and the rest of you, you guys want to go get a bite? I ain't going to waste the trip. I'm fucking out now. I may as well go get a bite. So you go have a lunch of shame, but it happens. Yeah, somebody wins, and I've been the winner, and I've been the loser.
Yep.
Winning's more fun, but losing still. Nolan North and I talked about this. He's one of my oldest friends in this business. Sometimes we didn't mind if we didn't get it because 3 of our buddies would be there, and we'd go have a beer. It's like, you know what? Let's touch base because it's rare that we see each other out.
Yep.
And yes, you get to be on the lot. I mean, one of the coolest experiences in this business is driving onto the lot, getting your own spot, getting to walk in, getting to work with the director of the project. And sometimes it's not even the ADR director of the project. It's the actual director of the movie.
Yep.
And they're directing you, and you're on the same sound stage that all these classic actors were on. And then you leave and they've paid you, and you're doing the same things that you did as a kid that you were, called out for doing.
Yep.
That's hard to get anywhere else. And so I'm trying to get as much of that as I can for the one day when I finally say, okay, I've had my run and I'm going to step aside, or I'm just going to see what I can get somewhere else. I'm nowhere near it. Let's put it this way. As long as my show, or not my show, the show I'm on is on, I'm here.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
So, if there's a world where I don't have anything going on here, yeah, I'll take a look. And I'll have to say to myself, I'm okay with not having any more of those moments, because those moments you're talking about only happen in one city.
Yeah, exactly. And that really is the biggest thing that makes me go, because I'm not ready to walk away from, as you
No,
said.
you've only had 7 years.
Yeah, right. I could move somewhere and I could keep working remotely. I know I could, but that's not really the point. The
Yeah.
point isn't that, because you're right. That is basically the end of your career. Yes, you're still working, but it's the end of your career because you're not having the full experience of it.
Yeah.
So I guess I've just answered myself,
And so have I. I mean, look, I've had 20 years of being a working voice actor, but I've had about 18 where I was really earning a real living, like living like an adult. And the last 10 or 12 have been amazing. So I'm here to tell you, I ain't tired of it. I mean, it's that good. It's that fun. The experiences are that amazing. A pandemic year is a great way to step back and reassess and realize we've been given perspective. How great were those experiences? Have they been? And how great is it going to be when we get to go back? When you get back in your car, drive onto a lot,
Right.
go to your sound stage, and say, yes, this is what I missed.
And also, we were the only ones in the entertainment industry in the first half of this whole business
kept
that
going.
could keep working. That was huge.
I haven't missed a single job.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
Me neither. In fact, I had one of the busiest summers I've ever had this year.
Me too. I have to admit, the day before I had a video game job, it was March 15th, I think was the job. The day before, I bought Source Connect. I did a little bit of research and I thought, I think I'm going to need to get this. The very next day, I did the video game job. I said, look, I don't think I should come in. There had not been a lockdown yet, but I said, I'm getting over a cold and I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And as soon as I said that, they said, you stay. Right. Stay where you are. We'll record you. It's no big deal. Later that week, I had a Simpsons record session. We started doing the table reads. March 19th, lockdown. Since then, I've been as busy as I've ever been. I even did a loop group, which I hardly ever do. I did that from home. I've had one or two offers to come in, and I've said no. I can't risk it. But for the most part, no. I have not lost a single job because of the pandemic. It's all been straight from here, the studio.
Yep,
so
exactly.
We're insanely lucky because of that.
Totally. And there isn't a day that goes by that I don't count my blessings for that. Because I know there's a lot of friends I have who are, well, in many other industries, but especially if they're on camera types, boy, that was a rough year.
It's hard. It is hard. It is hard. And that's why I do encourage people who are actors who are maybe not working as much as they wanted to. And right now, what they're facing is a lot of uncertainty. I say to them, YouTube is a thing for you to explore. It is possible to build enough of a following to monetize it, or it is possible to simply use it to start building an audience that maybe you use to create a product that you can pitch when things get back to normal. Go make something happen. I mean, it was really hard to do when I was in my 20s. You had to know somebody who had equipment.
That's right. The amount of people that tell me my show on Me, Myself, and Die on YouTube, the amount of fans I have that say, oh my God, this should be a Netflix show. This should be a Netflix show. And I'm like, call the producers. I mean, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe someone will stumble across it and go, hey, wait a minute.
Well, here's the upside is that thanks to your resume, if Netflix ever hears of it, they'll say, who's Trevor Devall? Oh, he's on one of our properties. Right. All right, he's not nobody.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
You have to be tested in some way. It's rare that they give somebody a shot who has no experience whatsoever. If you're, I mean, you and I both know this, and I know people may not believe it. Yes, there is some nepotism in this business, obviously. But when you hear about somebody getting handed a part, like, you got handed your part, but you got handed that part not because you were the first guy in front of Mike's face. It's because he knew what you could do.
Right.
When they know what you can do, and when they know other producers that have worked with you and they can pick up the phone and talk to them and ask, then it's easier for them to hire you. Like, I got handed my stuff on F is for Family by Mike. He knew me from The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
I auditioned to get on The Simpsons. They don't hand you anything on that show to do what I do on there. Yeah. So, you know, to already have what you have under your belt, you never know. Somebody from Netflix might just hear about your show and say, you know what? We don't have anything that fills that niche.
Yeah.
I frankly have never heard of somebody doing what you're doing, so I think it's funny.
Well, apparently it's unique. Apparently it's the first time that's, you know, people have, somebody's done it. I don't know if there's an audience for it or not. We'll see.
Not anymore, because tomorrow I start my first episode of Me, Myself, and EDGEVOICE. See how I did that?
Oh, believe me, that's something that's on my mind all the time. Some celebrity going to come along and scoop the idea.
Yeah, well, you'd have some sort of copyright issue, I guess. You could say it's on YouTube. It's semi-protected. They'll find a way. They always find a way to get around it. But
sure. I did back in 2005. I had a podcast. This was before podcasts were a thing. Called Voice Print with Trevor Devall and guests, and it was me interviewing my fellow voice actors. It was basically when we would go to these conventions, we were always asked the same question. So I thought, well, I'm going to bring the convention to the ears of the listener. And that's what, and no one had ever done anything like that. That was like, oh, wow, this is great. But it was in the early days. And so no one really heard about it. And then years later, Rob gets the idea to do Talking Tunes. And of course, because he has the celebrity that he has, it takes off and everybody thinks, oh, wow, what a great idea. And I'm like, well, actually, that was me doing that years before. But that's okay. It's fine. It's not, he didn't steal the idea. He just pulled it from the zeitgeist. But I'm like, scoped. I was robbed, literally in this case.
My buddies and I back in 95, at the beginning of 95, we had the idea in Orlando, we would go shoot a little short film, which back in 95, you had to know someone who had a camera. You had to know someone who had access to editing equipment. You had to be able to ask permission to use certain areas and all these things that nobody cares about anymore because they have iPhones.
Yep.
But we came up with a sketch idea about what if Forrest Gump was a hitman? You know, because Forrest Gump was the biggest movie out there. What was the second biggest movie? Pulp Fiction. So Gump Fiction. And so we came up with Gump Fiction. It was this cute little idea that was sort of half-assed the way we did it. And we made our own little sketch of it. We shot it in and around the local areas of Orlando. We got it played at a local theater in front of the Oscars. And then Mad TV airs later that year. And what was their first sketch they got known for? Gump Fiction. And our editor, who helped us come up with the idea, was livid. He was convinced that they stole it from us. And I said, look, they're in L.A., and they have a team of writers. And Gump Fiction, as cute as the idea is not like no one could have thought of that.
Exactly.
But he, to this day, is convinced they stole it from 3 jagoffs in Orlando.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And I said that this was before the internet. So it's like no one possibly knew. I mean, well, I sent that tape everywhere. You sent a tape of it. Oh, okay. Because they love opening mail from Orlando from someone they've never heard of. But to this day.
That's how it works here in L.A., don't you know? That's how people get jobs.
We need an idea for a film. Get me the mailroom. Well, David Mamet's right outside ready for his meeting. God, fuck him.
We need something young, fresh, unknown.
What does Jerry in Des Moines have cooking? Yeah, so I on your podcast, did you ever take an hour and just get really political and controversial?
Hilariously, yeah. And in fact, I had to cut the entire thing out. I did an episode with Richard Ian Cox, who was one of the great Vancouver voice guys, and I forget, this was during the Bush years. And we got on a big, like a 40-minute rant about stuff. And I realized I can't use any of this. I had to excise the entire thing. Really cut the episode down. But yeah.
Well, I tell you what, people do need to know where to find you. Where can we find Me, Myself, and Die on YouTube? Well, how do we spell that?
Me, Myself, and Die.
D-I-E, like a single die?
Single die, yes.
Okay.
Me, Myself, and Die, exclamation mark. And if you search that, it should come up. I have accounts on social media, but I never check them, so it's never pointless.
Never checks him. Don't bother. Don't ask him to friend you. He's not going to friend you.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. I'm out, baby. I'm out.
Trevor's not your friend.
Nope.
Trevor loves you, baby, but he's not your friend. Okay.
That's right.
All right. Now, do you have a website? Like you'd like to put your
Uh,
clips up somewhere, or do you use YouTube for that?
I have a website that I never use. It's trevordevall.com.
Gotcha.
No point going there. There's my demos on it. That's about it.
It's the abandoned mall.
It is.
It's the abandoned mall. They just do drone racing in now. It's like nothing's happening there.
Exactly. As you can tell, I completely suck at this whole self-promotion thing.
You know what? If you have enough of a network of people that know you already humming and you have an agent, agents love it when you self-promote. Agents love it when you help them help you. And I get it because I do it. But I also understand if you're working as much as you like to work, then your agent's not going to bitch at you for that either.
Yeah. And frankly, the people that I need to know in this town, they already know me. So it's good. I'm good.
IMDb's got his credits. Yep. IMDb is about 95% correct, I've found. They miss a few things I've done, but otherwise they get it. Obviously, they don't cover the commercials or anything like that, but that's okay. If you've done film, TV, or animation, it's largely there.
Yep, it is. Sometimes they screw it up. Sometimes they give credit to other people for your work and things like this. I had to be on them a few years ago for some X-Men show I was on back in the day. But yeah, I check in with them every now and then just to make sure that I'm still relevant.
Yeah. I remember one time I'm the voice of Spider-Man at the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man ride at Islands of Adventure in Universal Studios, Orlando, all that. I'm Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson on that ride, and Peter Parker, blah, blah, blah. So I'm on the IMDb as being that guy. There was a little bit of a dust-up in the beginning when I tried to put the credit up because somebody else was claiming that they were Spider-Man. And I got a taste of what that's like because I would think, I'm an honest person. I would think, why would you say that you're that voice when you know you're not that voice? Why would you say that?
Yeah.
When it's just clearly not true. Well, some people, I guess, just want the limelight of just even that little credit. And somebody was claiming that was them. And I would watch them sort of make an argument about it. This is all online. So-and-so said, well, I did this and I did this. And I said, and I only had to say one thing. I said, I have video footage of me recording the game because Universal sent their own PR team to record us and interview me, and it ended up on Nightline. All right? And not footage of me, but footage of the ride and footage of them making the ride. And I have the exact same footage from the exact same studio. Okay? So if you want, I can put this up. And then they mysteriously vanished. And I got to have the credit. But I don't know if that's ever happened where you had to actually go at somebody and make them take down their claim. For me, it was easy enough and it was a minor annoyance. But I know some people have had it harder than that.
I've been lucky. I had to go at IMDb because they miscredited me in this one show, and I had to write them and go, actually, that was me who played this character. Oh, okay. And then like 3 days later, they changed it back, and I was like, hey, what did I say? but I never actually had to confront anybody who was trying to claim to have done something.
Yeah.
Although this isn't an IMDb thing, but this was really freaky. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine said, oh, so you're in the new Star Wars such and such game. And I was like, I am? And because they had released a trailer, and I'm watching this trailer, and all of a sudden this voice from like the PA, some rebel base voice or something, some pilot or something comes over, and it's me. Huh. It's clearly me. I don't remember ever saying that, but I was like, what the fuck? And I'm racking my brain, and then I remembered I auditioned for this show like 3 months ago, or this game. And I thought, oh my God, did they lift my thing? So I had to call the agent, find out what this and this and this. And as it turned out, no, it was some guy, some non-union guy in, I don't know, Atlanta or something, who just happened in that moment to sound exactly like me. So had to put a hit out on him. And,
that's what you get.
That's what you get.
That's what you get.
It was freaky. Like it was exactly. Even I was like, I think that's me. I think. So that was weird.
If you're around long enough, sometimes you'll just forget things. And we've been watching a show, and it'll be a show about whatever, and I'll go, that was me. And I'll look at my wife and say, "Oh, that was me." She, really? Go, yeah, I had forgotten I ever did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
I get that at when you back in the before time when we used to do conventions, when people could still congregate. That used to happen to me all the time. All the time. Some fan would come up and say, "Oh, can you do the voice of such and such?" And I'd be like, and it's, "Oh, well, it's this anime you did in 2001, and it was my favorite character. He only had 3 lines, but could you do?" And I'm like, "Whoa, go!" And I want to help them because I know it's such a big deal for them, but I'm like, I have no idea. So you just make something up and hope you're close. I guess. Just,
Yeah.
Because the last thing they want to hear is, "Hey, this is just a job for me, pal."
Yeah.
That's the last thing they want to hear, even though it's the truth.
I get asked canon questions all the time about certain shows. Like I'm on Naruto. You've probably done Naruto too.
Maybe.
Well, then it's the one job maybe you haven't done. It's anime, and they've done hundreds of episodes of it. And every now and then, someone will ask me a canon question about Naruto, and I'll just be honest with you, and I'll just say, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about the show. I know a little bit about my character, and I can answer basic questions about him. But if you ask me about so-and-so's power versus this person, I'll just say, I don't want to disappoint you with the bullshit answer because I don't have one.
And there are some guys that love that stuff. There's some guys that just totally get into the show and they're big fans of it. I got to tell you, I've watched exactly 2 shows that I've ever done. One is F is for Family, and the other is Lego Star Wars. Other than that, I don't really watch. I kind of got the Michael Caine thing where I can't watch myself on screen. I get all I can see are the mistakes, So when people ask me, "Oh, well, what this or they get," I can't get into it. I just I don't know enough about it.
It's funny because it makes me think when you and I would like riff in the in sort of the margarita mix waiting room before we'd go in. We would just go back and forth. And I remember you would do a Bill Shatner. Both of us could kind of do a Bill Shatner. There's different phases of his career that you could do when you're doing Bill Shatner. My guess is William Shatner probably loves to watch his work. He probably makes everyone else in the room shut up. Quiet. Season 2. Some of my best work, And I just get the feeling, I could be totally wrong and frequently am, but I get the feeling that he probably loves to watch his stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I can't stand it. I did a Marvel, I think it was an X-Men thing. I was playing Colossus, I think, many years ago back home, and I was in the studio for a different project, and the technician came out and he saw me in the waiting room. He said, "Hey, I'm mixing those episodes we did. You come in and check it out." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I go in and he's mixing it, and I come on doing the Colossus thing, and he's like, "It's pretty good, huh?" And I said, "I gotta tell you, I don't know why they keep hiring me. I do not understand, because all I can hear are the errors."
That's funny. For me, it's a mixed bag. If I really if I like what I did, I'll say, "Okay, yeah, good. I can watch it." Other times I go, maybe I was just the best one they could find. Maybe they were in a hurry. I don't know. I don't think I deserved to be on that show, but that's why I look at something like what you would do is you would do this William Shatner doing Rocket Man, and I thought, that's spot on, and I thought maybe that's the one thing he can't bear to watch, but wouldn't it be great if that's the one thing where he's proudest of it? Like that one thing, the spoken word Rocket Man.
Have you seen the original? Like, have you seen the actual?
Oh, we talked about that. Not only have I seen it, but it killed.
Oh, yeah.
The audience loved it.
Oh,
I think maybe they didn't quite know what they were seeing, but they just loved him. I think people walked out of that auditorium maybe with a vague sense that we might have been wrong to love that. But it's taken a turn.
I think that back then they were all thinking, far out, man.
Yeah. They were clapping for him as he was introducing him. They were so stoked for him. And those of you that don't know, just Google William Shatner, Rocket Man. And if you're young, first just Google Rocket Man. The movie itself is a fun movie, but just listen to the song Rocket Man. All right, it's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful song.
Then once you've seen Shatner doing it, you have to Google Stewie Griffin doing Shatner doing Rocket Man, and it's
exactly. Packed my bags last night, pre-flight.
Pre-flight.
Yeah.
Pre-flight, flight.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be Hi,
Yeah.
forgot by then.
Yeah, I think she's going to be high. Yes. So what you have to understand is Rocket Man as a song is a beautiful piece of it's a little treacly, but a lot of Elton John songs are, but it's beautiful because it's so earnest. And then here comes William Shatner, striding the earth like a colossus, saying, "Oh, if you think that's over the top, just wait, my
Spotlight,
friend."
stool, cigarette.
Yeah.
Packed my bag last night. Fixed for
Yeah.
the night flight.
It is as though someone spread Nutella over all of the scenery and said, "Here's a bib, William, have at it." And he didn't stop there. I think he was on the Mike Douglas show doing It Was a Very Good Year.
Yeah.
Oh, Rocket Man is one thing, but It Was a Very Good Year. There are no studio tricks. It's just him in front of a live audience with a boom mic over him. And once
I was
again,
34. It was.
when I was that came undone when I was 21. Oh yeah, and he's actually inhabiting the body of a 17. When I was 17, it was a very good year. So again, Google, It Was a Very Good Year, Frank Sinatra. Beautiful song, a little too earnest, but beautiful. It's a slice of life, and then along comes Shatner. Step aside, Frank. I've got my own thing going.
There's not many things I can't improve on, as you're about to find.
It is, and oh my God, thank heavens that those things exist. That, and of course, I don't know, Orson Welles doing anything by the time he reaches the 70s, the 1970s, just. And then you have to watch Orson Welles trying to sell Parmesan wine. Then you have to watch the outtakes where he's drunk. And then you have to Google Maurice LaMarche doing Orson Welles. And then you've nailed the trifecta. There's a trifecta out there. And I'm sure Maurice LaMarche probably does a perfect Bill Shatner doing all these things. But I think I've taken enough of your time, sir.
3 hours ought to do it.
You take care. You enjoy your awesome kick-ass studio, which I will want to see when this all lifts.
Damn right.
All right. Be well, sir.
You too.